Chapter 3945, Love Rival 3. Jun Linyuan, on the other hand, looked over his shoulder and gave Yu Minji a half-smile. Was it mockery? Provocation? Content? Show-off? Yu Minji felt that it was all of above. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Feng Sun patted Yu Minji on the shoulder. Infuriated, Yu Minji threw off Feng Sun's hand. Hey, Yu Minji, what are you angry about? What's there to be angry about? They're a couple. That's all. Why did it sound like Feng Sun was so pleased? Yu Minji threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. Feng Sun shrugged innocently. Infuriated, Yu Minji pointed at the house in front of them. Jun Linyuan, I'm not going to lose. Just wait and see. After that, Yu Minji stormed off. Feng Wu opened the window when she heard the noise, but all she could see was Yu Minji running away. Turning around, she saw Jun Linyuan resting his head on his hands and smiling like a pleased cat. Feng Wu frowned a little and stared at Jun Linyuan. Xiao Yi ran away because you pissed him off. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu. Why call him Yu Minji? Feng Wu said, Xiao Yi. Jun Linyuan said, no. Feng Wu snorted. Jun Linyuan, don't pick on him. He's just a kid, not like you. The crown prince was obviously displeased. How so? Feng Wu sat down in front of Jun Linyuan and looked into his eyes. He's innocent, kind, and naive. The crown prince frowned, and the temperature in the room dropped. Feng Wu didn't seem to notice it at all. She went on. Look, every time he tried to challenge you to a duel, you would pick on him all the time, and he only got braver after every setback? I feel sorry for him. Jun Linyuan looked a little happier. Feng Wu went on. You've been picking on him all the time until he was almost in tears. He then ran off in a fit of rage. I can't bring myself to see it. The crown prince's face darkened again. Feng Wu went on. I look at him as if he's Xiaoqi, my younger brother. I just hope that he'll live a better life. A younger brother? Jun Linyuan relaxed a little. I don't know where he went this time. It's not easy to meet him, Feng Wu said in a sorry tone. I need to talk to him. He's very grumpy and he's gone as fast as he came. So, I think he'll come back tonight. Please don't pick on him again. Jun Linyuan snorted, but no one knew if he had agreed. Feng Wu looked at him. Jun Linyuan looked back at her. Feng Wu rose to her feet, poured a cup of tea, and handed it to Jun Linyuan. From outside, one could see her silhouette on the window paper. However, Jun Linyuan didn't take the cup. Instead, he turned his pleading gaze on Feng Wu again. The look in his eyes. Feng Wu understood. He was asking her to feed him. However, don't you have hands? Feng Wu glared at him. Everything was fine before. Why did she have to feed him all of a sudden? What Feng Wu didn't know was that a little head was leaning against her wall. Lying on his stomach on the wall in the dark, Yu Minji watched everything that was going on. He saw Feng Wu pouring Jun Linyuan some tea and feeding it to him. Chapter 3946, Love Rival 4. Ugh. Yu Minji was so angry that he almost fell off the wall. Little Feng Wu, you little fool. Are you blind? Can't you tell that Jun Linyuan is faking it? He's faking it. Why are you still serving him? Then he saw Feng Wu. What was she doing? She was touching Jun Linyuan's foot, and she was moving her way up his leg. You're a girl. Don't you know that it's improper for men and women to touch each other? Yu Minji was furious, but he wouldn't leave. Instead, he kept his unblinking gaze on the window. They were so close and they were hugging each other. Inside, Feng Wu said grumpily to Jun Linyuan, I started massaging from your feet and worked my way up to the top of your head. Do you feel better now that you've completed a whole cycle? Even Feng Wu herself had forgotten about her massage skills, but Jun Linyuan still remembered. He told her about the massage she gave him in the crown prince's residence and insisted on doing it now. Feng Wu couldn't believe it. Hey, Jun Linyuan, don't push it. Although I promised to look after you, I didn't promise to do what a maid would do. That's enough. The crown prince gave Feng Wu an aggrieved look, turned around and faced the wall. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Fine, she had to appease him now. Feng Wu had no choice but to go up to Jun Linyuan and sit down on the bed. She then turned to Jun Linyuan and said in a gentle voice, I'm not saying that I won't take care of you. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't order me around all the time when I'm busy. What are you busy with? Jun Linyuan asked quietly. Feng Wu said grumpily, It wasn't easy for me to run into you, Minji, and I was only going to make some semi-divine pills for him. After all the help he gave me, I couldn't. Hey, Jun Linyuan, why are you angry again? I'm the one who's going to give you Minji some semi-divine pills. Why do you mind it? Alright. I'll give you a massage. I'll do it from the bottom of your feet all the way to the top of your head. Don't be mad. You're so stingy. All Yu Minji could see was the image, but he couldn't hear anything, for Jun Linyuan had blocked all sound. Right at that moment. Hello. Someone patted Yu Minji on the shoulder. Turning around in frustration, Yu Minji saw that it was Feng Sun, so he looked away again. Since Feng Sun was Jun Linyuan's friend, Yu Minji decided that Feng Sun was his enemy. Yu Minji threw a dirty look at Feng Sun and looked away. Hey, Yu Minji, why are you so angry? I don't understand. You're so grumpy. Feng Sun had always been a very friendly person. Hey, don't tell me that you're jealous because you're in love with little Feng Wu. Wow, are you jealous of Boss Jun? Feng Sun looked amazed. Yu Minji could admit anything, but he would never admit that he had lost to Jun Linyuan. Hence, he denied it outright. What are you talking about? I'm not. Yu Minji pointed at the silhouette on the window paper and said angrily, Look. So. It's the middle of the night. It's against public morals. Feng Sun grinned at Yu Minji. Are you really not jealous of Boss Jun? Crossing his arms, Yu Minji snorted. He's the last person I'll be jealous of. Chapter 3947 Confession of Love 1. Crossing his arms, Yu Minji snorted. He's the last person I'll be jealous of. Feng Sun darted a look at Yu Minji. Really? Yu Minji glared at him. You don't believe me? I've always been telling the truth. Rubbing his chin, Feng Sun pondered for a moment, then asked, That is to say, you don't like little Feng Wu, right? You won't be jealous if you don't like her, right? Holding his sword between his crossed arms, Xian Yi darted a look at Feng Sun before looking away. He wondered if it was a good idea to pick on Yu Minji like this. Yu Minji was the most easy to provoke, especially when Jun Linyuan was involved. Like her? Heh, there's no way I'm going to like her. With her unreasonable temperament, Crossing his arms, Yu Minji looked as proud as a peacock. However, Feng Wu heard him. Feng Wu couldn't hear him before, but she heard him now. Somehow, Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu and looked pleased. Hearing Yu Minji's voice, Feng Wu rushed over to open the window. She needed to talk to Yu Minji. However, she only managed to say, Yu Minji. Right after that, she heard the sound of something falling on the ground. Ouch! Yu Minji fell to the ground with a thump. Holding his head, he cried out. Feng Wu jumped out of the window and landed on the wall. Yu Minji. As soon as Feng Wu started, Yu Minji looked up and met Feng Wu's gaze. The next second, his face went scarlet red, and he dashed off like a rabbit. With a whoosh, he was out of sight. Feng Wu was furious. Why are you running away? I need to talk to you. She wanted to tell Yu Minji to stay put and give him time to refine the pill before giving it to him as a gift. Feng Wu didn't have anything else to give him, but she had pills. But Yu Minji was out of sight before Feng Wu could finish. Why is he running? Feng Wu said grumpily. I'm not going to eat him. It's just. Feng Sun chuckled and told Feng Wu, Xiao Wu, don't worry. I'll go talk to him. Feng Wu said, Tell him to stay in northern border city for at least 2 more days. I'll give him some pills tomorrow. Feng Sun felt a chill run down his spine. His eyes met Boss Jun's. Feng Sun said, What? I guess it'll depend on if I can catch up with him. You know, Yu Minji can run very fast. After that, Feng Sun dragged Xian Yi away. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She went back to her room and sighed at Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan glanced at her. Why are you sighing? Feng Wu fretted. Why do I get the feeling that Yu Minji is behaving strangely? Is he out of his mind? Jun Linyuan chuckled inwardly. He had thought that Xiao Wu was unromantic only toward him, but as it turned out, she really didn't know anything about it. Yu Minji had made it so obvious, but she still couldn't tell. Jun Linyuan, are you smiling? Feng Wu stared at the handsome teenager. Why are you smiling? Would His Royal Highness be the type to help a rival in love? He cleared his throat and said, I think you're right. Feng Wu asked, what do you mean? Jun Linyuan said in a serious tone, didn't you say that he was innocent, kind, and naive? Feng Wu nodded. That's right. Jun Linyuan said, so, don't you already know? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. After thinking for a while, Feng Wu finally understood what Jun Linyuan meant. How dare you call him stupid? Feng Wu smacked Jun Linyuan on the shoulder. Ouch! Jun Linyuan put a hand on his belly and looked like he was in pain. Feng Wu immediately put down her hand. Are you all right? Jun Linyuan snorted. It's been a while since he's been an idiot, and now, he also has poor eyesight. You haven't spoken to him yet. Feng Wu asked, what's wrong with his eyes? Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu and blushed a little. He then turned away and looked out of the window. Didn't he say that he didn't like you? What do you think of his eyes? Holy crap! It's true. Feng Wu was convinced by Jun Linyuan right away. I was going to make a batch of pills for this Yu Minji all by myself, but he called me short-tempered. I won't disappoint him. Forget it. I'll just ignore him. Jun Linyuan rubbed her head and almost couldn't control the smile on his face, but he still put on a straight face. He doesn't like you. Actually, Jun Linyuan blushed a little. He had never been so. It just so happened that he had met a very straightforward teenage girl. The girl was still indulging in the bad things Yu Minji said about her. Scratching her head, she said, forget it. I'm going to bed. Jun Linyuan didn't know what to say. Feng Wu covered Jun Linyuan with a duvet as she spoke. Look at you. You're in so much pain every time you move, which means that your internal injury is still very severe. It'll take you a very long time to recover. So, be a good boy and go to bed now. Don't say another word. Jun Linyuan looked at Feng Wu in silence. Feng Wu was confused. Why are you looking at me? Is there something on my face? Jun Linyuan said angrily, I'm going to bed. He pulled the duvet over, turned around, and glared at the wall. Feng Wu looked at Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. Scratching her head, she mumbled, Are you angry again? I can't believe it. Feng Wu was utterly confused. She felt so innocent. Hearing Feng Wu's nagging, Jun Linyuan was even angrier. He clenched his fists and thought, Little Feng Wu, you're such a goofball. Goofball. Feng Wu didn't return to her room. She only made a bed on the floor. Jun Linyuan stole a glance at Feng Wu and saw her jump into the duvet. She immediately curled Yudi into a ball. Jun Linyuan didn't know what to say. It was inappropriate, but why was she so adorable? Deep down, Jun Linyuan decided to forgive Feng Wu. Moreover, he was going to stay on the subject. That was because it was such a rare opportunity. Yu Minji's appearance had provoked him, and he had made up his mind to claim his sovereignty openly. Moreover, little Feng Wu probably liked him as well, right? Hence, Jun Linyuan tossed and turned in bed and racked his brain. Chapter 3948, Confession of Love, 2. Jun Linyuan racked his brain. Finally, he summoned up his courage and went on. He had to say it sooner or later. Little Feng Wu actually. Summoning up the courage of his life, Jun Linyuan clenched his fists, stared at the ceiling, and was about to speak when, phew! A long, even breathing sound came from 2 meters away, and it was accompanied by a little snore. The crown prince who was capable enough to talk to a top cultivator of the continent, the one who could shake the continent with a stomp of his foot. He looked like he had been struck by lightning. He turned to the side and stared at the girl who had rolled up in her duvet. Moonlight poured in through the window, lighting up the room. Only her smooth forehead could be seen. From Jun Linyuan's angle, he could see most of the girl's face. Right now, she was fast asleep, her cheeks flushed, and she was snoring happily. Jun Linyuan was so frustrated. Jun Linyuan's usually taut face cracked a little. He took a deep breath, then another. Only then was he able to suppress his emotions. Rising to his feet, he went up to Feng Wu and crouched down in front of her. Even with the heavy shadow over her face, the girl could still sleep soundly. Jun Linyuan was so. What could he do? All her frustration turned into a long sigh. Her eyes were closed, and her eyelashes were like butterfly wings. Her eyes would be so clear and bright when she opened them. She looked like an innocent baby when she was asleep. Her skin was so smooth that he wanted to take a bite. Phew. In the end, his frustration turned into indulgence. He picked up his girl and slowly put her down on the bed. The teenager lay on his stomach by the bed and looked curiously at the girl with his limpid, brooding eyes. He would poke her little head one moment and move her hands the next. His eyes were filled with affection, and he couldn't put his hands off her. He was still touching her hand when she smacked him. She wrapped the duvet around her again and turned away. She mumbled, "Jun Linyuan is so stingy. He's mad at me. In the end, she gave him all kinds of nicknames. She smacked her lips as she spoke. Jun Linyuan's mouth fell open. In the end, he rubbed her head with a wry smile. She was so lovely. Just then he heard a faint noise outside. It was a secret signal Feng Sun had made with Boss Jun when they were little. Fearing that he might wake the girl up, Jun Linyuan quickly left the room and jumped over the wall. As expected, Feng Sun was crouching outside the wall with his head stuck out. "Boss Jun, you're finally out. I made that brat Yuminji drunk. He really likes Xiao Wu. After he got drunk, he wouldn't stop talking about Xiao Wu, saying that he wanted to marry her. And he said that he would marry her and make her the queen of the Dark Court. Tiske, that's really something he would do." Feng Sun saw the smile on Boss Jun's face when he came out, but the latter's eyes had turned cold. "Where is he?" Those three cold words. Feng Sun immediately said, "Yun Lai in, but he's guarded by 3 elders. They're all spiritual saints." Yuminji's father was genuinely kind to him. With 3 spiritual saint elders around him, he could do whatever on this continent, but he just happened to have a natural enemy. Seeing that Boss Jun was heading for Yun Lai in, Feng Sun followed him in a hurry. He said in a hurry, Boss Jun, a gentleman doesn't resort to violence. Calm down." It was mainly because Boss Jun was already injured. If he hadn't been injured, those ordinary spiritual saints wouldn't have been about to touch him in northern Yen. Boss Jun gave him a cold look. Before Feng Sun could say another word, Jun Linyuan had disappeared. Well, Feng Sun scratched his head. He's so aggressive. Are they going to start a fight? Why do I feel so uneasy? He looked up at Xian Yi as he spoke. Holding his sword between his crossed arms, Xian Yi had the poker face of a real swordsman. "Xian Yi, I didn't do anything wrong, did I?" Feng Sun asked diffidently. Xian Yi patted Feng Sun on the head, sighed, shook his head, and walked away. "What? Say something. I didn't do anything wrong, did I? I just told Boss Jun what really happened to Yuminji. He wanted to marry Xiao Wu and make her a queen. That'll be so scary. What if Xiao Wu agrees because it's worth it? Don't you think so?" Xian Yi rolled his eyes at Feng Sun. "Why are you looking at me like that? Do you think I'm an idiot?" Feng Sun asked gingerly. Xian Yi took a deep breath. "Who do you think is more capable in this world? The most capable man or the ruler of a kingdom?" Feng Sun said, "If that's the case, of course it has to be the most capable cultivator. The capable cultivator can destroy a kingdom but not the other way around." Xian Yi said, "There you go." Feng Sun said, That's right. Why couldn't I think straight? As a matter of fact, Feng Sun was a little anxious when Yu Minji told him about his plan to marry Feng Wu. On one hand, Boss Jun was scolding Feng Wu with a straight face, and on the other hand, Yu Minji was busy preparing for his marriage and running around Feng Wu like a puppy dog. Needless to say, he panicked. Therefore, when Yu Minji staggered toward Feng Wu after getting drunk, Feng Sun smacked him on the head, knocking him out on the table. Luckily, the three elders were all cultivating in their rooms and didn't see what was going on. By then, Jun Linyuan had arrived at Yunlai Inn. He was the most capable cultivator in the empire, and he couldn't do anything when his girl was around. However, he wouldn't be polite when she wasn't around. Yu Minji was still swaying when he woke up to find Jun Linyuan. Yu Minji smelled of alcohol. As soon as he saw Jun Linyuan, he forgot all about it and looked like a cat with its hair standing on end. He was on the alert. Chapter 3949. Conversation between Love Rivals, 1. The Crown Prince sat down in front of him and kept his gaze on him. Yu Minji had been reeking alcohol, but he woke up as soon as he saw Jun Linyuan. Yu Minji stumbled back involuntarily and bumped into the table behind him. Cups, plates, and bowls fell to the floor. Yu Minji slipped and fell to his knees. And he was kneeling in Jun Linyuan's direction. The three spiritual saints didn't come out when they heard the noise, but they all looked in that direction. Spiritual saints had their dignity, and they wouldn't rush into a fight for no reason. Jun Linyuan didn't see that coming either and wanted to smack his forehead. His rival in love. Fearing that Jun Linyuan would say something humiliating, Yu Minji jumped to his feet and glared at Jun Linyuan. What do you want? The Crown Prince was only a 3-year-old in front of Feng Wu, but to everyone else, he was the fiend. Hence, Yu Minji's stomach lurched when he saw the look in Feng Sun's eyes. Yu Minji? Jun Linyuan fetched an unused teacup and slowly poured himself some tea. He then rested his left hand on the table and spoke in an unhurried tone. Yes, that's me. So what? Yu Minji was flustered, but he was also secretly elated. Finally, Jun Linyuan knew his name. Over a year ago, Jun Linyuan hadn't even heard of his name. That was progress. Yu Minji gloated inwardly. Huh. Jun Linyuan frowned a little. You and Xiao Wu. Yu Minji cut him off before he could finish. Yu Minji then recalled that he had 3 spiritual saint elders behind him. 3. He wasn't afraid at all. He sat down in a chair and stared at Jun Linyuan. You're Xiao Wu? Why is she yours? Have you asked for her opinion? Did she agree? Jun Linyuan gave him a taunting smile. Yu Minji was furious, for the look Jun Linyuan gave him made him feel like a retard. However, he suddenly remembered something. The silhouette he saw on the window paper. Yu Minji finally knew why Jun Linyuan was so confident. Yu Minji almost jumped to his feet. Jun Linyuan, you're doing this to little Feng Wu. Are you even human? Jun Linyuan knew what Yu Minji was thinking, but he wouldn't clarify it. He only darted an unhurried glance at Yu Minji and smiled a little. Holy crap! Jun Linyuan, you're shameless. Yu Minji smacked the table in frustration. Not only didn't the Crown Prince retort, but there was satisfaction in his eyes as well. Yu Minji was furious. Shameless. 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 Yu Minji walked around the table in circles like a grumpy kid. Jun Linyuan leaned back in his chair and sipped his tea. In the end, Yu Minji ran up to Jun Linyuan and glared at him through gritted teeth. Jun Linyuan, tell me. Have you? Jun Linyuan raised his brows a little. Oh, you mean that? Are you really? Jun Linyuan said, we were engaged when we were little. What's wrong with that? Yu Minji's head was spinning. Taking a deep breath, he thought his lungs were going to explode. He wanted to hit Jun Linyuan, but he wasn't his match. Jun Linyuan hit the nail on the head. You can't even defeat that girl. How can you be in love with her? Yu Minji was going to retort, but all he could think of was how Feng Wu had taken care of giant flaming cloud eagle. It was so easy. Yu Minji had been chasing giant flaming cloud eagle but couldn't catch up with it. Feng Wu, on the other hand, had defeated it with a single strike. It was obvious who was more powerful. Yu Minji blushed. I have 3 spiritual saints with me. She'll be very safe. Jun Linyuan looked into his eyes and gave him a half smile. What about your own capability? Talk about a sore spot. Yu Minji was furious. I'm going to be very strong. Jun Linyuan, just wait and see. Yu Minji couldn't stay here anymore. He felt so humiliated. He couldn't understand this world anymore. He really was a very talented cultivator. He had worked very hard and had a lot of cultivation resources. He had done everything he could. Feng Wu was only slightly better than him when they were in the imperial capital. She was only slightly stronger, but now. What level? Yu Minji asked angrily as he marched through the streets. 3 spiritual saint elders stood a few steps behind him. The head of the elders said, Advanced Spiritual Saint. I meant Feng Wu. What level is little Feng Wu now? Yu Minji stopped, turned around, and stared at his elder. The head of the elders looked troubled. Yu Minji's face darkened. Exactly what level is she? He was frustrated. A spiritual overlord. The head of the elders looked at Yu Minji, who let out a breath of relief. However, the head of the elders added, a peak one. What? Yu Minji was so shocked that he thought he was hearing things. The head of the elders glanced at Yu Minji and sighed inwardly. Yu Minji saw light right away. A peak spiritual overlord? Feng Wu is a peak spiritual overlord now? Are you kidding me? Yu Minji almost jumped to his feet and stared at the head of the elders. The head of the elders gave him a sympathetic look. Yu Minji's stomach lurched. He turned around and looked at the 2 elders in silence. Elder 2 and Elder 3 nodded. For a moment, the atmosphere felt strangely quiet. A peak spiritual overlord? She's a peak spiritual overlord already? Back in Emperor Wu's capital, she was only a junior spiritual overlord. She really was. Fearing that the 3 elders wouldn't believe him, Yu Minji stressed repeatedly. All 3 elders nodded. As a matter of fact, the 3 elders had made some progress in the past 3 months as well, but Yu Minji didn't seem to have much luck and didn't make much progress. I'm 4 levels, Yu Minji swallowed with much difficulty. She has left me so far behind, hasn't she? The 3 elders nodded. Yu Minji closed his eyes for an indeterminate amount of time. When he opened them again, there was a resolute look in his eyes. Chapter 3950, Conversation Between Love Rivals, 2. Did you say that my opportunity was in the Dongsang Kingdom? Yu Minji had never sounded so calm. Seeing how serious Yu Minji was, the head of the elders grew serious as well. Your great opportunity is indeed in the Dongsang Kingdom, but it's too dangerous there. You may not survive. Yu Minji took a deep breath. I'll do anything even if it'll cost me my life. Let's go. Yu Minji left without hesitation. His pride wouldn't allow it. Feng Wu opened her eyes involuntarily when Jun Linyuan returned. Jun Linyuan? Feng Wu sat up in bed, looked at Jun Linyuan in surprise, then looked down at herself. Why am I in bed? Recalling that the girl had wasted the courage he had summoned, Jun Linyuan threw a dirty look at Feng Wu and ignored her. He then sat down in the corner and began to cultivate. Was he angry again? Feng Wu stared at Jun Linyuan in astonishment. Are you mad? The girl crouched down in front of Jun Linyuan and eyed him suspiciously. Jun Linyuan opened his eyes, glanced at Feng Wu, and went back to his cultivation. Feng Wu said, well. Rubbing her head, she tried to recall if she had offended Jun Linyuan. However, now that Feng Wu had figured out Jun Linyuan's temperament, she couldn't ask him directly why he was angry. She had to be tactful. Feng Wu sat down in front of the teenager and blinked at him. Jun Linyuan raised his chin. Feng Wu found it amusing. Hey, Jun Linyuan, are you angry because I took your bed? Jun Linyuan didn't reply. Feng Wu looked at his shoes and was surprised. Did you go out? Jun Linyuan didn't say anything. Feng Wu said grumpily, have you recovered? That's why you can run around now, isn't it? Jun Linyuan was speechless. Feng Wu said, after everything I've done for you, you're still out here in the middle of the night? I'm so mad. Hence, the tables had turned again, and it was Jun Linyuan's turn to appease his girl. The next day, while she still had time, Feng Wu went to see her old friend, Old Man Ba, the supreme-level medicine refiner. Old Man Ba was conflicted when Feng Wu arrived, for he had been refining a cauldron of pills 10 times already and had failed every single time. Oh my, Xiao Wu! Old Man Ba was amazed to see Feng Wu. You're back! Quickly, give me some advice. This mixed essence pill. Old Man Ba couldn't see anyone else when he spotted Feng Wu. He then led Feng Wu away. Feng Sun was amazed. Old Man Ba, are you quite familiar with Xiao Wu? Old Man Ba glanced at Feng Sun over his shoulder. What are you talking about? Of course, we're familiar with each other. But why are you here together? Are you friends? Resting a hand on Feng Wu's shoulder, Feng Sun darted a pleased look at Old Man Ba. Familiar? She's my sister. Of course, I know her well? Old Man Ba looked at Feng Sun in bewilderment. Feng Sun raised his chin proudly and let Old Man Ba look away. That's not right. Old Man Ba looked from Feng Sun to Feng Wu. Didn't you come to me to arrest Xiao Wu back then? She ran so fast and you chased her. Am I mistaken? Feng Sun scratched his head in embarrassment. Chapter 3951. Back to the capital. Feng Sun scratched his head awkwardly at Old Man Bat's words. Back then, they didn't know that Feng Wu was the ugly girl, and they had been chasing her everywhere. Feng Sun remembered that he had chased her all the way to the brothel. At that thought, Feng Sun and Jun Linyuan exchanged looks. Jun Linyuan looked away. He didn't want to talk about such a humiliating thing anymore. Ahem. Feng Sun immediately changed the subject and diverted Old Man Ba's attention. Not only did Feng Wu go to see Old Man Ba, but she had also met a lot of her neighbors. No one knew if Jun Linyuan was doing it on purpose, but he had stayed by Feng Wu's side the whole time, as if he was protecting her. The looks the neighbors gave them became suggestive. They were all surprised when they learned that he was the famous crown prince. When Jun Linyuan came to northern border city over a year ago, they still considered him to be an invincible and distant god. But this time, he looked like an immortal man. Not only wasn't the crown prince angry when Aunt Wang teased them, he even smiled a little. That was so. After Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan, and the others left northern border city, the common folk of northern border city talked about this meeting for a long time. Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan had left when the mayor arrived. Are they gone? The mayor was so frustrated that he asked Uncle Lon loudly. Uncle Lon nodded as he swept the floor. He's gone. The mayor was frustrated. What was he doing in seclusion? Why didn't he see the crown prince when he arrived? Meanwhile, Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan were heading for the imperial capital. Back then, this route had taken Feng Wu over a month, but she no longer needed that much time now. In less than 7 days, they were already in the imperial capital. Feng Wu didn't even go back home. Instead, she sent Jun Linyuan back to his residence. Jun Linyuan needed to recover from his internal injury, and he had an epiphany. Feng Wu locked Jun Linyuan up in the basement of the manor. Stay here and recuperate. No matter what happens outside, you're not allowed to come out until your wounds are healed. Got it? Feng Wu was serious this time, and she stared at Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan frowned. Resting her hands on Jun Linyuan's shoulders, Feng Wu said earnestly, Jun Linyuan, you're going to die if you don't treat your internal injury properly. Jun Linyuan kept getting injured, and each time, his dantian would be severely injured. Feng Wu examined it and saw that it was badly damaged. Your top priority now is to repair your body. Will you do that for me? Feng Wu pleaded. 3 months. I'll be out of seclusion in 3 months. Jun Linyuan kept his unblinking gaze on Feng Wu. All right. Feng Wu smiled. Feng Wu set up a formation after she left the basement. That way, no one would disturb Jun Linyuan's cultivation. No matter what happened outside, Jun Linyuan wouldn't hear anything. These 3 months are of utmost importance, Feng Wu said earnestly. Seeing the look on Feng Wu's face, Granny Gong became serious as well. Feng Wu said, "Don't let other people know that he's here. This time he can't stop repairing his dantian. Otherwise, there's a high chance that his dantian will be destroyed, and he may fall into the demonic path." Granny Gong nodded again. Feng Wu was going to leave after that. Granny Gong stopped her again. "Miss Wu, please wait." "What?" Feng Wu stopped, turned around, and looked at Granny Gong in bewilderment. Granny Gong looked from the sealed door to Feng Wu and said after some hesitation, "Miss Wu, aren't you going to stay here? If His Royal Highness knows, he'll want you to stay in the residence." What Granny Gong wanted to ask the most was, "His Royal Highness isn't feeling well now. Aren't you worried?" Feng Wu nodded. "The next 3 months are very important, and I have to be here to protect him. But I need to take care of something now." Granny Gong let out a breath of relief. Feng Wu went back to the Feng clan. Qiuling and the others greeted her. They had been worried about Feng Wu for months. Now that Feng Wu was finally back home, they were relieved. Chaoga burst into tears as soon as she saw Feng Wu. "Xiao Wu, why did you leave?" "I've missed you so much. We've been getting news from the northwest, and some even said that you were dead. How can I believe that? I beat her up." Feng Wu frowned a little. "I'm dead." Chaoga nodded. "That's right. We've been receiving news of your death, and His Majesty has been worried." Feng Wu asked Granny Zhao what was going on. Tears welled up in Granny Zhao's eyes as she nodded in fear. "I was told that you died in the northern Yen kingdom and, I think—" "What is it?" Feng Wu asked. Granny Zhao said, "I think it has something to do with Princess Raoshi of Northern Yen." Feng Wu said, "What?" "So, the rumor is that Princess Raoshi has killed me." Granny Zhao nodded. "Your Uncle Qiu asked around, but His Royal Highness, young Lord Feng and young Lord Xian Yi weren't there. In the end, he went to Northern Feng Mansion to ask around, but Northern Feng Mansion didn't tell him anything either. I don't know what happened, but my lady has heard about it." "Hey, where's my mum?" Feng Wu grabbed Granny Zhao and asked anxiously, "I've been back for a while, but I haven't seen her anywhere. Where is she?" Feng Wu rushed in, followed by Granny Zhao and the others. "She's in the back room. I had a quiet discussion with your Uncle Qiu, but somehow, your mother heard it. She heard about your death and spat out a mouthful of blood. She hasn't been doing well." Tears welled up in Granny Zhao's eyes again. "She's been getting worse. Where's the imperial physician? Didn't you send for him?" Feng Wu almost burst into tears when she saw her mother, who had lost a lot of weight. Taking her mother's hand, she checked her pulse right away. Granny Zhao said, "His Majesty has sent Master Chu here, but he said that it was a terminal disease, and there was nothing he could do. How could it be?" Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu fought back her frustration and checked her mother's pulse. Feng Wu frowned when she checked his pulse. She didn't believe in terminal illnesses at first. After all, being too worried couldn't be terminal. However, judging from her mother's pulse. Chapter 3952, Her Mum's Pulse. Feng Wu frowned a little. Her mother's pulse was so strange. Her pulse was weak at times, strong at times, and stopping at other times. For a moment, Feng Wu couldn't figure out what was going on with her mother. She was so worried. "Xiao Wu." Seeing that Feng Wu didn't say anything, Chaoga stepped forward. Feng Wu shook her head at Chaoga. "I don't know yet. Has anyone been to Fallen Star Yard recently?" Granny Zhao and Chaoga shook their heads. The beautiful lady was still unconscious, but luckily, her life wasn't in danger for the time being. She still had time to solve this mystery. Just then, Feng Wu heard a voice calling her. "The White Fairy." Feng Wu ran out of the door and soon reached the dry well of the Fang Manor next door. The White Fairy had been cultivating here. As expected, when Feng Wu arrived, She saw the white fairy sitting in the dry well. The dry well was filled with yellow sand, but the white fairy's dress was spotless. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Feng Wu. Recalling her mother's condition, Feng Wu grew anxious. She asked as soon as she sat down in front of the white fairy. "Recently?" The white fairy frowned. "I've been cultivating, but what?" Feng Wu felt that the white fairy wanted to say something, but hesitated. As expected, she spoke again. "Someone has been here." Feng Wu immediately asked, "Who is it?" The white fairy said, "I don't know." Feng Wu said, "How can you not know? Do you know if it's a man or a woman? How old are they? What's their cultivation level?" The white fairy looked at Feng Wu and nodded. "She's about your age and her cultivation level is." The white fairy was going to say that the person was much more capable than Feng Wu was, but she hesitated as soon as she opened her mouth because she sensed the formidable spiritual essence coming from Feng Wu. "You?" The white fairy stared at Feng Wu. "Are you a peak spiritual overlord now?" Feng Wu nodded without hesitation. She had nothing to hide. The white fairy didn't know what to say. She didn't want to talk anymore. The white fairy remembered clearly that Feng Wu was only a junior spiritual overlord when she left the imperial capital 3 months ago. "What on earth did you eat? How can a person cultivate so fast?" Feng Wu smiled. "Ahem, I was just lucky. It was pure luck." The white fairy still didn't want to talk to Feng Wu. However, Feng Wu prompted her. "How about that girl of my age? How's her cultivation level compared to me?" The white fairy shook her head. Feng Wu asked, "Is that something that you can't talk about?" The white fairy said, "It's hard to say." Feng Wu immediately realized something. Is she also a peak spiritual overlord? The white fairy nodded. And she has 2 very capable men with her. They're peak spiritual saints. Feng Wu was astonished. The white fairy nodded. That's right. They were at the peak of the spiritual saint stage. Maybe even higher. That's an area I've never dealt with before, so I can't tell exactly how capable they are, but I can say that they're unfathomable. Feng Wu drew in her breath. She searched her memory, but she still couldn't think of anyone she knew that was like that. "Who is she? What did she do to my mother?" Feng Wu asked. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. "Do you want to hear the truth?" Feng Wu nodded earnestly. The white fairy said, "That which was very arrogant when she arrived. Her arrogance is demonstrated by the fact that she has deliberately caused fluctuations in the spiritual essence around her, which has disrupted the meridians of the people around her and made them vomit blood. But they still don't know what has happened. I promised to protect your fallen star yard for 100 years, so I took action." The white fairy looked at Feng Wu, and the look on her face became more and more serious. "But I only made 1 strike, and an invisible force knocked me away. My soul almost shattered. The white fairy had always been in her spiritual form. If her soul was destroyed, she might disappear forever." Feng Wu was astonished. The white fairy said, "It was one of the 2 masters I told you about." He only waved his sleeve. "What do you think of his capability?" Feng Wu pursed her lips, and her face darkened. The white fairy went on. "After I left, that little witch went back to Fallen Star Yard. It was after dark, and all your maids and grannies were asleep. Your mother was the only one who was awake and crying because she missed you. No one knew what the little witch was doing in there. She came out 15 minutes later. She wore bells around her ankles, and they jingled when she walked, but no one in the house woke up. That bell was a divine weapon. Your mother has been in a coma since she left, and we don't know if she'll survive. That's all I know." Feng Wu stared at the white fairy. "Did they just let you go?" The white fairy shook her head. "That little witch wanted to kill me, but the 2 spiritual saints stopped her in the end, which was why I'm still alive." Feng Wu frowned a little. According to the white fairy, the girl wasn't a threat, but the 2 spiritual saints were. Even Feng Xiangnan wouldn't be able to withstand such power. Jun Linyuan, on the other hand, had gone into seclusion because he needed to repair his body. "Was that your rival in love?" The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. Where would I find one of those? Was that Zhua Qinghuan? The white fairy said affirmatively, definitely not. She's a little younger than Zhua Qinghuan, and with her bare feet and bells, it's very easy to recognize her. She's definitely not Zhua Qinghuan. Feng Wu racked her brain, but she couldn't think of anything. Just then, they heard voices in Fallen Star Yard next door. Feng Wu jumped out of the well and soon returned to Fallen Star Yard. Watching Feng Wu leave, the white fairy murmured, "Is it true that the younger generation is surpassing the older one? Are we going to be left behind? These teenage girls are incredible." At that thought, the white fairy felt rather sad. Meanwhile, Feng Wu went back to Fallen Star Yard to find Lady Northern Feng. Xiao Wu. Seeing that Feng Wu was still alive, Lady Northern Feng was pleasantly surprised. She then held Feng Wu in her arms. Chapter 3953, Barefoot and Bells, 1. Lady Northern Feng almost burst into tears of joy when she saw Feng Wu. "Are you all right? You're not dead?" Lady Northern Feng rubbed Feng Wu's head, feeling sorry for her. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Feng Sun said you were back. You're really alive. That's great." Seeing that Lady Northern Feng was going to cry again, Feng Wu tried to appease her. "I'm fine. Please don't cry. But where did you get that information?" Lady Northern Feng said that she had learned it from someone called Lady Kai. In the end she said, "Lady Kai? Her family is very close to the Dugu family." Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. "The Dugu family? By the way, the Dugu family hasn't been very peaceful recently," Lady Northern Feng told Feng Wu in a serious tone. "Try not to get into conflicts with them later. If you can bear with it. If something really happens, we'll wait for your godfather to come back. It won't be too late." Feng Wu looked at Lady Northern Feng in bewilderment. "The Dugu family? Empress Dugu's family?" Lady Northern Feng nodded. Feng Wu frowned a little. "I don't think the Dugu family is that powerful." Feng Wu thought, "I've destroyed the Zhua family, and the Dugu family is about the same size as the Zhua family at most." However, Lady Northern Feng told Feng Wu, "The Dugu family used to be the same size as the Zhua family, but it's different now." "It's so different." Feng Wu looked at her in bewilderment. "Different? Huh?" Lady Northern Feng smiled bitterly. "I can't tell you exactly, but I feel that the Dugu family is much more powerful now. Apart from the royal family, the Dugu family is also the most influential family in the imperial capital." Feng Wu was surprised. "Isn't it Northern Feng Mansion?" Lady Northern Feng shook her head with a wry smile. Feng Wu frowned. Lady Northern Feng was a valiant and heroic lady. Moreover, Northern Feng General doted on her, and the Empress Dowager was her godmother. She had never been bullied in her life, but now, she looked a little defeated. Feng Wu immediately asked, "What did the Dugu family do to the Northern Feng Mansion?" Lady Northern Feng smiled bitterly. "There's a capable cultivator in the Dugu family, and he's so powerful." Lady Northern Feng gave it some thought and said in the end, "According to your godfather, he may not be as capable as Master Ling Hu, but I don't think he's weaker than His Royal Highness. He's at the peak of the spiritual saint stage. Right now, he's guarding the Dugu family." A peak spiritual saint. Feng Wu recalled what the white fairy said earlier. According to her, there was a barefoot girl with 2 peak spiritual saints. Her mother had been unconscious ever since she entered Fallen Star Yard. It was so difficult to find a peak spiritual saint on this continent. How could the imperial capital have so many of them all at once? Gritting her teeth, Feng Wu asked Lady Northern Feng, "Have you seen a barefoot girl around my age?" Tilting her head, Lady Northern Feng gave it some thought and her eyes lit up. "I think I've seen her somewhere before." Feng Wu asked anxiously, "Where?" "Think about it." Lady Northern Feng walked back and forth in the room. In the end, she gave Feng Wu a wry smile and said, "I can't think of anything at the moment. I can't help you." Feng Wu said, "Don't worry. Just keep it in the back of your mind. It'll just pop up when you least expect it. You won't be able to figure it out. When you think too hard. Lady Northern Feng then asked, what about that barefoot girl? Chapter 3954, Barefoot and Bells 2. Feng Wu gritted her teeth. She has to have something to do with my mum's coma. The antidote Feng Wu needed had to come from that girl. The look on Lady Northern Feng's face became even more serious, indicating that she would think about it carefully. Just then, someone came from the imperial palace. Gao, the emperor's eunuch, let out a breath of relief when he saw Feng Wu. Miss Xiao Wu, you're really alive. I was so scared. Master Gao was on Jun Linyuan's side and had always been very nice to Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. I think everyone in the imperial capital thinks that. I've died in the northern Yen kingdom. Does His Majesty think so as well? Master Gao smiled. His Majesty was worried as well, but he said you had 9 lives and was sure you would be all right. He then said. Feng Wu asked, what else did His Majesty say? Master Gao smiled. His Majesty also said that a scourge like you can live for 1,000 years. You can't possibly die. He even flogged those who spread rumors. Feng Wu said, so, was Her Majesty the Empress Dowager over the moon? Master Gao smiled bitterly and didn't answer Feng Wu. The Empress Dowager was so. Feng Wu didn't want to talk to her anymore. Master Gao, may I ask why you're here? Feng Wu asked. Master Gao said, His Majesty wants to see you. Miss Wu, how long have you been here? When are you going to see His Majesty? He has a lot of questions for you. Feng Wu was about to say something when Gao cut her off. Don't say that you can't get in without an audience. Have you forgotten about your waist plate? You can go anywhere in the Junwu Empire as if His Majesty is with you. Feng Wu waved her hands with a wry smile. I'm not your match. Let's go to court now. Sure. Gao welcomed Feng Wu into the imperial palace without breaking a sweat. By the way, Lady Northern Feng, Gao said before he left, you better go back now. His Majesty has an edict. An edict? Why now? It didn't seem to be bad news. His Majesty wants to welcome Miss Feng Wu back with a banquet in Taiji Hall. All officials above the 4th rank and their families have to come. Gao still remembered what His Majesty said. They were all saying that Xiao Wu was dead, and I'm going to summon all the gossipy women to the Taiji Hall. I want them to see that my daughter-in-law is still alive. When Master Gao said that, he chuckled, and so did Lady Northern Feng. Feng Wu blushed and said, what's he talking about? It's not official yet. Plus, the most important thing now is the poison in my mother's system. Before she's awake, I won't think about anything else. Everyone became serious when Feng Wu said that. Lady Northern Feng was the first to react. Poison? You're saying that your mother was poisoned, not terminally ill? Feng Wu shook her head but didn't explain further. She didn't want to alert the others. Feng Wu followed Master Gao into the imperial palace, while Lady Northern Feng went back home to prepare for the banquet. In the study, Emperor Wu looked at Feng Wu with tears welling up in his eyes. He was genuinely excited. He stood on top of the stairs and stared at Feng Wu. Those who didn't know better would think that they were father and daughter. Your Majesty. As soon as Feng Wu bowed, Emperor Wu quickly walked up to her and patted her on the shoulder. You're really alive. I was right. How can anything happen to you? Ha. Emperor Wu immediately asked Feng Wu what happened on her journey. Feng Wu told him everything except for her 6th senior brother, which was confidential. Emperor Yen is so nice to you, and he's punishing Princess Raoshi for you? Emperor Wu was amazed. Feng Wu nodded. When I came back, Emperor Yen had destroyed Princess Raoshi's cultivation ability and banished her to a nunnery. I don't think she'll ever come out. Emperor Wu was surprised. Why is he so nice to you? All of a sudden, Emperor Wu grew anxious. He wants you as his daughter-in-law? He wants you to marry his son. Feng Wu immediately smiled. That's not going to happen. Even his son won't allow it. Who else is after you? Emperor Wu had sent someone to investigate, but they hadn't come back yet. Feng Wu counted with her fingers. Apart from Princess Raoshi of Northern Yen, there's also the Zhou family, the Flower Valley, the Firmament Palace, and the Dongsang Kingdom. Emperor Wu stared at Feng Wu in amazement. How can you still be alive when so many of them are after you? That explains the news of your death. Other people would never have come back alive. You're the only one who can survive this. However, Emperor Wu's face darkened. I've given the order, but these people still want to kill you. They're offending the Junwo Empire. I'll forgive them. And about my mother, Feng Wu said earnestly. Her mother was the most beautiful woman in the empire, and even Emperor Wu considered her an untouchable goddess. Of course, he cared about her. Mom isn't terminally ill. She was poisoned. What? Poisoned? Emperor Wu's face went scarlet red. Who? Who poisoned her? Feng Wu shook her head. She's a barefoot girl with 2 top-level spiritual saints protecting her. Your Majesty, have you seen anyone like her? As soon as she said that, she saw Emperor Wu frown as if he had remembered something bad. You've met her before? Feng Wu asked affirmatively. Emperor Wu didn't answer explicitly. Instead, he pondered for a moment, then looked at Feng Wu and said seriously, "Don't mess with that person. She's not someone you can mess with. Listen to me and don't go to her." Feng Wu frowned. If I can't find her, my mother won't wake up. How can I let that happen? Feng Wu took a few steps back and stared at Emperor Wu. I've worked so hard to protect the people I care about. Now that my mother is lying in bed, you're telling me that I can't go to the person who poisoned her. Heh, she's just a peak spiritual overlord. Are you sure she's not someone I can't mess with? Feng Wu smirked. If she was really mad, she would go to her senior brothers and her beautiful master. She wouldn't be intimidated. Emperor Wu looked at Feng Wu in resignation. She's just a peak spiritual overlord? Emperor Wu patted Feng Wu on the head. Don't get too excited. Yes, you're a genius, but you haven't been cultivating for long. You're a junior spiritual overlord at most. I'm at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, Feng Wu said calmly. A peak spiritual overlord? What did you just say? Emperor Wu's eyes widened as he stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, the peak of the spiritual overlord stage. Emperor Wu said, didn't you have a chaotic battle with the Zhua and Hua families when you left the imperial capital? You were only a junior spiritual overlord then. It's only been 3 months, and you're already a peak spiritual overlord. That can't be. Emperor Wu looked from Feng Wu to Master Gao inquiringly. Master Gao nodded at Emperor Wu. To be able to stay by Emperor Wu's side and protect him, one had to be a very capable cultivator. Emperor Wu pointed at Feng Wu. You've been making such rapid progress that you almost scared me. It took Emperor Wu a while to recover from his excitement. Staring at Feng Wu, he said, I don't think Junjun made as much progress as you did he? Feng Wu was frustrated. So what? I'm not a peak spiritual saint yet. If she was at the peak of the spiritual saint stage now, she wouldn't need to worry about anything. All she needed to do was to find that barefoot girl and kill her. She didn't need to worry about anything else. Emperor Wu rubbed Feng Wu's forehead. Feng Wu snapped. What? Emperor Wu said, you don't have a fever. What are you talking about? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Seeing that Feng Wu was in a bad mood, Emperor Wu tried to appease her. That's doable. After all, they've come all the way here and didn't bring many capable cultivators with them. When Junjun gets here... Wait, where's Jun? Linyuan? Feng Wu wouldn't tell anyone else, but Emperor Wu had nothing to hide, so she told him about Jun Linyuan's recovery. He's in seclusion? Repairing his body? Emperor Wu's eyes widened, and he looked shocked. Feng Wu nodded. We can't disturb him this time. Otherwise, his body won't be able to take it. Emperor Wu asked, what will happen? Feng Wu glanced at Emperor Wu. What do you think will happen if his body is destroyed? Emperor Wu frowned. Feng Wu was confused. Is there something that only he can do? Emperor Wu looked embarrassed. He didn't tell Feng Wu what it was about but only waved at her. Don't worry. I'll take care of it myself. Go back to your cultivation. The Junwu Empire will depend on the few of you when you reach the peak of the spiritual saint stage. Feng Wu could sense the fatigue in Emperor Wu's voice as if something she didn't know had happened. Feng Wu suddenly recalled what Emperor Wu said earlier, that the barefoot girl didn't bring many capable cultivators with her. How were 2 peak spiritual saints not many? What does she want? Feng Wu stared at Emperor Wu. Where did that barefoot girl come from? What does she want? Where is she now? Chapter 3955. Who is she? Emperor Wu only stared at Feng Wu without saying a word despite her questions. So, you can't tell me? Feng Wu smiled bitterly. Emperor Wu patted Feng Wu on the shoulder. Xiao Wu, you've reached the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, but you haven't reached the spiritual saint stage yet. It won't do you any good to know about this. It'll only interfere with your cultivation. Hurry up and become a spiritual saint. In the end, Emperor Wu sounded like he was pleading. Entering the spiritual saint stage? Would it affect the Junwu Empire greatly? Feng Wu thought to herself. However, to Emperor Wu's surprise, while he was still hiding it from Feng Wu, at the imperial banquet that night. At the banquet to welcome Feng Wu back, Feng Wu met the barefooted girl with the bells the white fairy was talking about. Naturally, she wasn't there at first. Halfway through the banquet, when the atmosphere became more intense, there was the faint jingling sound of bells. Many people didn't hear it, but Emperor Wu frowned and looked displeased. He put down his glass and looked in the direction of the palace. The emperor's seat had always been facing the door. Therefore, Emperor Wu was the first to see the slim figure at the door. The lower hem of her flirtatious purple dress flapped in the wind, revealing her smooth calves, and the bells on her ankles chimed. Emperor Wu put down his cup, and his face darkened. The emperor was the center of attention, so everyone turned their heads and followed Emperor Wu's gaze. The enchanting girl with exquisite features walked toward them in the moonlight. She had only brought 2 people with her. Although they were few in number, there was an arrogant look on her face. She raised her chin and looked very arrogant. Who's she? She's wearing such strange clothes. Half of her arm is out. That's outrageous. And she's so arrogant. The others didn't like the enchanting girl right away, for she had a very provocative attitude. However, some of them were pleasantly surprised. That man was among the Dugu family. The pretty girl walked arrogantly to the center of the hall, raised her chin, and smiled at Emperor Wu. Why, Emperor Wu, you're in a good mood. A palace banquet? How dare you? One of the officials scolded her. It was none other than Duan Hongyi, Duan Chaoga's father. However, with that, the enchanting girl raised her hand, and a formidable energy shot at Duan Hongyi. Master Duan didn't even have time to react before he flew backward. Thump, thump, thump. Duan Hongyi knocked over several tables in a row, smashing into quite a few people before he landed. Blood kept coming out of Master Duan's mouth, and he couldn't utter a word. The people he bumped into fell to the ground as well. Chaos ensued, and people cried out in surprise. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and stared at the pretty girl. She created chaos as soon as she showed up. She was so eager to see the world in chaos. The chief of the Imperial Guards came in right away. However, Emperor Wu waved them off. Chapter 3956. The Empire of Dianwen. The barefoot girl walked up to Emperor Wu, tilted her head, and smiled at him. Why, Emperor Wu, you're so grumpy. Are you mad at me now? Emperor Wu narrowed his eyes. How dare you? The girl wasn't angry. She looked around and saw the confused looks in everyone's eyes. She smiled and said, I'm Yan Ling. I'm from the Dian Empire. By the way, do you know the Empire? Everyone was confused, but a few important officials of the Junwu Empire frowned. It was obvious that only a few core members of the Junwu Empire knew about the existence of that empire. Yan Ling glanced at Emperor Wu with a half-smile. So, most of the people of the Junwu Empire don't know about the existence of the Dian Empire. Emperor Wu, that's not right. How can you keep it from them? Emperor Wu's face was livid. But the girl named Yen Ling kept pressing, and she seemed to be very cheerful. The royal family of Dian is the superior sovereign of the Junwo Empire. In other words, the Junwo Empire is a vassal state of the royal family of Dian. The centennial annual festival is coming up. Emperor Wu, are you going to start preparing gifts now? Seeing that Emperor Wu wouldn't answer, Yen Ling chuckled again. Have you forgotten about the tribute because we haven't visited for 100 years? The look on Yen Ling's face turned serious when he said those words. An intimidating energy filled the air. Yen Ling was at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, and the energy she was giving off wasn't too bad. However, the two men she had brought with her were the most capable cultivators of their generation, and they were releasing their energy as well. The capable cultivator hiding in the dark was about to step out when Feng Wu suddenly stared at Yen Ling and smiled. Miss Yen Ling. Feng Wu glanced at her. Yen Ling turned around and glanced at Feng Wu, which shocked her. What a beautiful girl. Her eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking when she saw Feng Wu. Who is this young lady? Yen Ling, who had been aggressive toward Emperor Wu, turned all her attention to Feng Wu now. That was Feng Wu's plan. Feng Wu couldn't bring herself to see Emperor Wu being bullied by Yen Ling in front of so many people. After all, Emperor Wu had always been kind to her. I'm Feng Wu. Feng Wu? Who's that? Yen Ling sneered at her. Who gave you the permission to speak? Right now, many people were watching Feng Wu nervously. Because it was a royal banquet, there were a lot of people here. Almost all the fourth-ranked officials and their families were there, as were all the members of the major clans. Right now, they were all watching the conversation between Feng Wu and Yen Ling. Many of them were Feng Wu's old acquaintances. Some were gloating over Feng Wu's predicament, but most of them felt sorry for her. Needless to say, the 10 major clans knew about the existence of the Dian Empire. Although the empire hadn't been here for 100 years, their existence was like a shadow over the Junwo Empire. To be the empire of Yen was like a giant mountain that was crushing down on every country on this continent. Chapter 3957, The Empire of Dian 2. Who's Feng Wu? The others didn't like it when Yen Ling asked that question. Feng Wu, on the other hand, said calmly, I'm just someone who can defeat you. Hearing that, Yen Ling couldn't help but give Feng Wu a strange look. She then chuckled. Interesting. I didn't know that the Junwo Empire could have such an ignorant person. Yen Ling smiled at Emperor Wu. So, King Junwo, do you mean that as well? King Junwo? To Yen Ling, the emperor of the Junwo Empire was only a king. Emperor Wu clenched his fists. However, the energy coming from the two spiritual saints behind Yen Ling stopped him from making any reckless moves. He said, Shall Wu come back? Crossing his hands behind his back, Yen Ling raised his chin and darted an arrogant glance at Feng Wu. Feng Wu took a deep breath and went up to Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu shook his head at her, telling her to stay put. Feng Wu was so frustrated. She could live with the humiliation, but she couldn't stand it when an elder was humiliated, especially when that elder was Emperor Wu, who had been respected for his entire life. Yen Ling didn't look at Feng Wu again. Instead, she put her hands behind her back, raised her chin, and said casually, I'm here today to discuss a business deal with King Junwo. Emperor Wu said indifferently, Since we're here to talk business, Princess Yen Ling, let's talk inside. He didn't want to talk to Yen Ling in front of so many people. He only wanted to send her to the study, but Yen Ling waved him off. That won't be necessary. It's very simple. Just say the word, and I'm in a hurry. Emperor Wu knew that it wasn't good news, so he frowned. What is it? Yen Ling said, I heard that the Junwo Empire has produced a genius teenager in the past 100 years. His name is Jun Linyuan. Is that true? Emperor Wu frowned and had a bad feeling. However, Mrs. Dugu chuckled before Emperor Wu could finish. Jun Linyuan? Isn't that His Royal Highness? Flame Spirit nodded. That'll make things much easier. Emperor Wu stared at Princess Yen Ling, who asked arrogantly, Where is he? Emperor Wu knew where Jun Linyuan was because Feng Wu had told him that Jun Linyuan was repairing his body and cultivation technique in the secret underground room and wouldn't come out for 3 months. Right now, no one was allowed to disturb him. According to Feng Wu, even if the Junwu Empire collapsed, no one was allowed to disturb him. Emperor Wu glanced at Feng Wu, then turned to Yanling. Princess Yanling, Mav I ask Whv Veri asking about Tun Linvuan. Princess Yanling said arrogantly, if he's a genius, he should be a little talented. Of course, we have to take him back to the Empire of Dian and teach him well. It'll be such a waste if he's left in the Junwu Empire. Let him come out. Emperor Wu smiled bitterly. I appreciate your kindness, but he's not in the Junwu Empire. Even if he wants to go to the Dian Empire, he won't be able to. Why don't you leave first? When my defiant son comes back, he can go to the Empire to look for you. How about that? However, Princess Yanling shook her head. No. Emperor Wu's face darkened, and he said coldly. Chapter 3958, The Empire of Dian 3. Emperor Wu said coldly, Jun Linyuan really isn't in the Junwu Empire. I'm afraid Princess Yanling won't be able to find him. Princess Yanling's face darkened. She had been threatening him in secret before, but now she was openly threatening him. Jun Linyuan isn't here? Your Majesty, please come with me. Feng Wu frowned. That was so arrogant of Princess Yanling. The others didn't see this coming. They rose to their feet and glared at Princess Yanling. Humiliating Emperor Wu was like humiliating them. Just then they heard a taunting voice. Feng Wu, that's not right. Why haven't you told His Royal Highness? He'll be here in no time. It was Mrs. Dugu again. Feng Wu recalled the information she had received. The Dugu family had suddenly become stronger, and they were going against her all the time, even offending Emperor Wu. It seemed that the Dugu family was backed by the Dian Empire. As expected, Princess Yanling turned her attention to Feng Wu again. She frowned and asked, what does this girl have anything to do with it? Mrs. Dugu smiled. Princess Yanling, you may not know this, but Feng Wu was engaged to His Royal Highness once, and they're very close. If anyone else knows about His Royal Highness, it'll be Feng Wu. Is that so? Princess Yanling had no interest in Feng Wu at first, but now she narrowed her eyes and smiled at Feng Wu. Jun Linyuan's fiancé? Who the hell do you think you are? She didn't try to be polite at all. Many people's faces darkened, especially Lady Northern Feng. She gritted her teeth and glared at Princess Yanling. If she could, she would slap the princess. But there were also those who gloated, such as the Dugu family. Feng Wu glanced at Princess Yanling and smirked. That's so strange. If I'm not good enough, are you? Princess Yanling acted as if she had only just heard about Jun Linyuan, which was obviously not the case. She had to know Jun Linyuan well. Maybe she was here for him. Princess Yanling stared at Feng Wu and suddenly smiled. He and I? Well, that's not a bad idea if Miss Fens Wu wants to dart with him. Feng Wu smirked. But I don't want to part with him. Princess Yanling snorted. It's not up to you. Feng Wu shrugged. At least, I'm still his fiancée. Princess Yanling said, not if you're dead. Emperor Wu knew how terrifying the Dian Empire was, so he stopped Feng Wu and shook his head at her, telling her not to offend Princess Yanling. But with what was going on, Princess Yanling wouldn't let Feng Wu off the hook just like that. Princess Yanling smirked at Feng Wu. If that's the case, let's do it according to the rules of my empire. The loser of the battle will become the winner's slave. Feng Wu said, all right. Seeing that Feng Wu had agreed without hesitation, Emperor Wu was exasperated. He grabbed her by the arm. Xiao Wu. Princess Yanling was too powerful. Had she lost her mind? Lady Northern Feng also tried to stop Feng Wu from saying yes. Mrs. Dugu smiled. Princess Yanling has come all the way here, but Miss Feng Wu has been targeting her all the time. See? She's angry now. Chapter 3959. Princess Yanling. Lady Northern Feng glared at Mrs. Dugu. Mrs. Dugu said innocently, isn't that the case? Without the Dayan Empire, Junwo Empire would be the Junwo Empire. Now that the people of the Dayan Empire are here, the Junwo Empire is no longer the Junwo Empire. Lady Northern Fong was furious, but she couldn't deny that Mrs. Dugu was telling the truth. It just didn't sound nice. I see that the Junwo Empire still has some wise people. Princess Yenling smirked and stared at Feng Wu. Bring it on. I'll show you how invincible the empire is. With a wave of her hand, the two capable cultivators next to her backed away. Meanwhile, Princess Yenling took out her whip. It was a red whip with barbed thorns, resembling a venomous snake. Before she could say anything, Princess Yenling struck first. With a smack, the red whip whipped down at Feng Wu's face. Instantly, spiritual essence filled the air. With the whipping, the space between Feng Wu and Yenling became chaotic, and the atmosphere was very gloomy. A short distance away, everyone drew in their breaths. It was such a terrifying power. She's at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage. As soon as Princess Yenling made her move, someone in the crowd spoke. It was none other than Long Yenny, the head of the Long family of Grey Dragon Valley. The Long family sat very close to Lady Northern Fong, who asked, Princess, Yenling is a peak spiritual overlord now? Long Yenny took a deep breath and nodded. That's right. Princess Yenling has indeed reached the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, and she's only a step away from the spiritual saint stage. That breakthrough may be today or in a few years. Lady Northern Fong asked anxiously, what about Xiao Wu? Before, Lady Northern Fong could tell Feng Wu's cultivation level, but in the past 6 months, she couldn't anymore. Long Yenny watched as Princess Yenling closed in with the red whip, but Feng Wu dodged. After a strike, Feng Wu ran away, while Princess Yenling ran after her. Wait a minute. Long Yenny cried out. What happened? Just tell us. Mrs. Long grabbed Long Yenny's sleeve and prompted him. It was true. Because the battle had involved a cultivator at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, many people didn't understand it and were waiting for Long Yenny's explanation. What level is Xiao Wu now? How many stances can she take? How's she doing? The two of them fought so fast that they left after images behind. It would be impossible for the others to follow. That's so strange. Long Yenny suddenly smacked the table and rose to his feet. How can this be? Lady Northern Fong wanted to kick him. What was that supposed to mean? Just say it. Long Yenny took a deep breath. If I'm not mistaken, little Feng Wu is a peak spiritual overlord as well? Am I seeing things? Long Yenny had met Feng Wu a year ago. Back then, Feng Wu was only a spiritual lord, but now, she was a peak spiritual overlord. Everyone shook their heads. That's impossible. Feng Wu was only a junior spiritual king when she graduated from Imperial College. That's right. She was only a junior spiritual king when she went to the battlefield. How could she be a peak spiritual overlord now? How long has it been? A year? It's not a year yet. That's not possible. No one believed it. Mrs. Dugu said, that's impossible. Long Yenny smirked. If that girl wasn't a peak spiritual overlord, she wouldn't have been able to withstand Princess Yenling's attack for so long. They've been fighting for 5 minutes. Everyone fell silent. It was true. If Feng Wu hadn't reached the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, she would never have been able to survive Princess Yenling's attack. Meanwhile, Princess Yenling was driven mad by Feng Wu. It wasn't because of Feng Wu's capability but because of her speed. She couldn't force Feng Wu to fight her head-on, for Feng Wu was as nimble as a fish. She kept jumping around, and Princess Yenling's whip couldn't even touch her. Feng Wu, how dare you run away? Princess Yenling gritted her teeth. She didn't like the way she was now. The Dayan Empire was several times more powerful than all the other kingdoms of the Junwu continent put together. Therefore, when she came to the Junwu continent, she was very condescending. Just like when she was with Emperor Wu. She was a princess of the Dian Empire, and Emperor Wu was the ruler of a kingdom. They were of similar social status, so she didn't want to show him A&V respect. However, she didn't expect that Feng Wu would play her like this. Stop right there. Princess Yanling ran after Feng Wu with her whip. But the longer she chased, the more disappointed she became. She realized that Feng Wu was at least a level 9 spiritual overlord. The Junwo Empire was indeed full of unknown talented people. They already had Jun Linyuan, and if they also had Feng Wu. Just then she heard a voice. Feng Wu has the divine phoenix blood. That's why she's making such rapid progress. It was Mrs. Dugu again. Lady Northern Feng grabbed Mrs. Dugu. Shut up. But she had said it, and it was too late to keep her mouth shut. The divine phoenix blood? Princess Yanling stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Why do you have the divine phoenix blood? Seeing that Princess Yanling had been distracted by those words, Feng Wu stopped running. On the other hand, thought that Feng Wu was still moving forward, which was why she kept moving forward. What happened was quicker than words could describe. Feng Wu had put on the arm of discipline. With a whoosh, the arm wrapped around the whip and pulled Princess Yanling, who was on the other end, to Feng Wu's side. Puff! Numerous thin needles shot out of the arm, aiming at Princess Yanling's vital parts. Everything happened so fast that no one had time to react. Princess Yanling, who was still immersed in the incident with the true phoenix blood, was caught off guard. You! Gritted her teeth and glared at Feng Wu. By then, Feng Wu had moved behind her and pressed the sharp dagger against Princess Yanling's thin neck. Feng Wu smiled a little. She was talking to Mrs. Dugu while keeping her eyes on Yanling. Thank you, my lady, for helping me. Mrs. Dugu blanched and didn't know what to say. She wasn't helping Feng Wu. She was helping Princess Yanling, but as it turned out, Princess Yanling had been defeated by Feng Wu. Meanwhile, everyone was staring at Feng Wu in astonishment. She won. Feng Wu had won? How was that possible? Princess Yanling was a peak spiritual overlord, but Feng Wu, Long Yini was equally shocked. He had never expected Feng Wu to win. This is unbelievable, Long Yini shouted inwardly. Meanwhile, Feng Wu pressed a dagger to Princess Yanling's neck and asked with a half-smile, "Are you going to give in?" Of course, Princess Yanling wouldn't give in. She smirked. "I'm not giving in." "What? Are you going to kill me now?" Feng Wu didn't speak. Thinking that Feng Wu had been rendered speechless, Princess Yanling smirked. "You know the two capable cultivators I brought here, don't you? Do you know how capable they are? Do you know that they'll wipe out the entire empire? How dare you kill me? Bring it on." Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and stared at Princess Yanling. Was very pleased. She was still gloating when something happened. With a thump, Feng Wu clenched the arm of discipline into a fist and punched Yanling. The impact almost sent Princess Yanling flying backward. It just so happened that Feng Wu was holding the back of Princess Yanling's collar with her other hand, which was why Yanling didn't fly away. Princess Yanling felt a sharp pain in her belly, so painful that she was almost in tears. Had been spoiled since she was little and had never been beaten up like this. However, Feng Wu punched Princess Yanling in the stomach again. "Are you going to give in or not? Are you going to give in or not?" With each punch, Princess Yanling arched her back like a cooked shrimp, and the pain made her break into a cold sweat. However, she was stubborn. Despite the pain, she wouldn't give in. "Feng Wu, kill me if you can. Otherwise, I won't give in." Feng Wu smirked. It seemed that she hadn't been harsh enough. With a thump, Feng Wu used the power of thunder. It was the power of thunder she had infused into the arm when she made it. Once she activated the thunder attribute, the arm would be covered with lightning. In Feng Wu's grip, Princess Yanling screamed. Her hair stood up and she was trembling. Feng Wu smirked. "So be it. I don't really want you to give up either." Almost rolled around on the ground in pain. But she still wouldn't give in. They had made a bet that the loser would become the slave of the winner. As Princess Yenling of the Dian Empire, she couldn't become the slave of an unknown girl from a small country. Therefore, Princess Yenling wouldn't admit her defeat. Just then, two peak spiritual saints stepped out and walked up to them. "Grandpa Yao, kill her!" Princess Yenling shouted at one of them. Grandpa Yao, who had reached the peak of the spiritual saint stage, stared at Feng Wu with his cold eyes. "No!" Emperor Wu pulled Feng Wu behind him and smiled obsequiously at Yao. "She was reckless. Please forgive her. She's still." However, Grandpa Yao only smirked and made a little push. Chapter 3960, Feng Wu's Secret. Emperor Wu was shoved away and smashed into the table behind him. "Your Majesty!" Master Gao steadied Emperor Wu and cried out. Emperor Wu almost had a heart attack. It was such a terrifying power. His girl. While Emperor Wu was worried about Feng Wu was sneering at Grandpa Yao. A smirk. How dare Feng Wu smirk at a peak spiritual saint? Everyone was snaking from head to toe. They couldn't help but panic when they felt the power of a peak spiritual saint. "You're a bold girl." Yao Yuan stared at Feng Wu with a cold look in his eyes. His tone was as calm as the ocean. "But even if you're that bold, you're still going to die today." "So, that's the rule of your empire, isn't it?" Feng Wu said sarcastically. "You propose a bet first, then force a competition. You're going to kill someone if you lose? Is that how your empire behaves?" Princess Yenling rose to her feet and smirked at Feng Wu. "Young lady, I see that you really have no idea how capable the Empire of Dian is. This is a world where the strong are respected, and you're trying to reason with me? Why should I?" "Grandpa Yao, kill her now." Feng Wu asked, "Why?" Princess Yenling said, "Because I don't like you. Because I'm more capable than you, I can trample on the contract at will. Because I don't like you, even in your territory, my people can kill you however they want. I'm killing you because I want to. Reasonable? No one will reason with you in front of the powerful empire of Dian. To people of small countries like you, every member of the empire is a noble figure. If I want to kill you, I'll do it. There's no need to pick a date." Princess Yenling was unbelievably arrogant. Feng Wu gritted her teeth and stared at her. Princess Yenling smirked. "You don't like it? If you don't, go destroy the empire one day. As long as it's alive, we'll be so much more prestigious than you." "Grandpa Yao." Princess Yenling couldn't be bothered to talk to Feng Wu anymore and prompted him for the third time. Yao Yuan nodded and stepped forward. He grabbed Feng Wu by her thin neck. He wanted to snap Feng Wu's neck. Feng Wu wanted to dodge, but Yao Yuan did something, and she felt so weak that she couldn't even lift a finger. Everyone watched as the peak spiritual saint lifted Feng Wu off the ground. Feng Wu's feet had left the ground, and she was suspended in midair. Emperor Wu and Lady Northern Feng bellowed at the same time. They wanted to charge out, but there seemed to be an invisible wall between Feng Wu and the man. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get in. Damn it. Feng Wu was going to be throttled. Emperor Wu spat out a mouthful of blood. How was he going to answer Jun Linyuan if Xiao Wu died? At that critical moment, a cold voice rang out. "Stop." His voice was so cold and authoritative that it gave one the creeps. Even Yao Yuan, a peak spiritual saint, felt a chill run down his spine. How was that possible? They were peak spiritual saints. Yao Yuan felt an invisible force on his throat. If he didn't let go, that dark energy would pierce his throat. What a terrifying opponent. Feng Wu fell to the ground with a thump. "Xiao Wu." Lady Northern Feng rushed over, caught Feng Wu, and led her away from Yao Yuan. At that moment, the owner of the voice finally showed up. Master Ling Hu. Everyone let out a breath of relief when they saw who it was. That was right. Only Master Ling Hu could turn things around in a critical moment like this. It was like this for over a decade ago. Emperor Wu let out a breath of relief, but his stomach lurched. Master Ling Hu was about to die, and the old man had told him so himself. Would it affect his life? The thought made Emperor Wu even more flustered. Master Ling Hu was the pillar of the Zhenwu Empire, just like Patriarch Huyen was in the northern Yan kingdom. Emperor Wu watched this closely and didn't dare to let his guard down. Meanwhile, Master Ling Hu was standing in front of two peak spiritual saints. "How's Prince Yan doing?" Master Ling Hu asked indifferently. Yao Yuan and Ma Quan looked at each other in surprise. Master Ling Hu wasn't a peak spiritual saint, but... "You've reached that stage?" Yao Yuan gritted his teeth. Master Ling Hu said indifferently, "I was lucky. I've only just gotten started." Even so, he was more than enough to handle the two of them. At that thought, Yao Yuan and Ma Quan wanted to give up. Powerful cultivators like them cherished their lives more than anyone else. They had put in so much effort for their cultivation that ordinary people couldn't understand it. Therefore, they couldn't afford to die. "Ling Hu, are you going to make the empire your enemy?" Yao Yuan warned him. Although they weren't as capable as Master Ling Hu, the empire behind them was enough to make all the capable cultivators of the Zhenwu Empire prostrate on the ground. However, Master Ling Hu only smiled and said coldly, "I'll kill you two first, then." Master Ling Hu was giving off a murderous energy. That Ling Hu was really... "Let's go." Yao Yuan and Ma Quan exchanged looks before dragging Princess Yanling away. Princess Yanling said angrily, "Grandpa Yao, I'm not leaving." But soon she was out of sight. When Master Ling Hu turned around and saw Feng Wu, the look in his cold eyes softened a lot. He said to Emperor Wu, "Take care of her." Emperor Wu nodded immediately. The next moment, Master Ling Hu was out of sight. He left as quickly as he had arrived. With a wave of his sleeve, he left no trace behind. However, the legend he left behind was very popular. The others let out a breath of relief. It had been a very difficult day. It was going to be a sleepless night after they left the imperial palace. They were all haunted by the Dian Empire. After 100 years, the empire was back. Many people only lived for a few decades, and their impression of the empire was only in the legends. However, when the empire walked out of the legends and landed on the ground, things began to change in the Zhenwu continent. Yao Yuan and Ma Quan left the imperial palace with Princess Yanling. Outside the imperial capital, in the dense forest. "Grandpa Yao, put me down!" Princess Yanling shouted angrily. Only then did Yao Yuan let go of her. As soon as she landed, she gritted her teeth. "Grandpa Yao, Uncle Ma, when father handed you to me, he told you to keep me safe. Is this how you protect me?" The two peak spiritual saints' faces darkened. Princess Yanling immediately realized that they were both peak spiritual saints. Even in the Dian Empire, such capable cultivators were very hard to come by, and there were only a handful of them in the entire Prince Yan's residence. Ahem! She immediately changed her attitude and looked aggrieved. "Grandpa Yao. Uncle Ma, that Feng Wu has bullied me. How could you?" Yao Yuan frowned. "That Master Ling Hu is so capable. If we fight against him, he will suffer, but the three of us will die." Princess Yanling looked at him in surprise. "Grandpa Yao, is that true?" Yao Yuan nodded. Wiping away her tears, Princess Yanling smirked. "I didn't know there was such a person in the Zhenwu Empire. How interesting." Yao Yuan said, "I heard that Mu had a few pupils here. Is that Ling Hu his pupil?" Ma Quan frowned. "If that's the case, it'll be even harder to handle him." Princess Yanling asked, "Are you talking about that man?" Yao Yuan and Ma Quan, the two peak spiritual saints, didn't try to explain to Princess Yanling. Instead, they said, "It seems that it won't be easy for us to defeat the Zhenwu Empire." Yang Ling rubbed her chin and was lost in her thoughts. She was a smart woman. She was so angry just then that she almost lost her mind, but after she calmed down, she began to analyze the pros and cons. "I thought I could do whatever I wanted with their reverence for the empire, but Master Ling Hu just showed up out of nowhere. It'll be very troublesome for the Empire to send capable cultivators here. The more capable they are, the more costly it will be. Sending us here will cost the clan a lot of money. Princess Yen Ling rubbed her chin and pondered as she walked. But the Junwu Empire does have a lot of secrets. There's that Lady Xuanji over there in Fallen Star Yard. Heh, she thinks I don't know who she is. If her father knows where she is, he'll probably come here right away. Yao Yuan and Ma Quanquan nodded. One look at Lady Xuanji's face and one could tell who she was. It'll depend on my father if we should get rid of her or trade her for a favor. And that Feng Wu, don't you think she looks a little like Lady Xuanji? Princess Yen Ling was confused. I don't know where she came from, but we haven't heard anything about a peak spiritual overlord at such a young age. Let the Dugu family look into it as soon as possible. There's more. Princess Yen Ling gritted her teeth. What's that divine phoenix blood, Mrs. Dugu was talking about? It's so rare. Chapter 3961, Her Master's Secret. Henvi. Princess Yen Ling said, even the royal family only has one descendant with that bloodline every generation. That person left with the divine phoenix blood. Is Feng Wu's divine phoenix blood related to him? That's very likely. Yao Yuan nodded. Ma Quanquan frowned. She's under Ling Hu's protection. There's nothing we can do. Princess Yen Ling smirked. It's just that we can't do anything to her for the time being. For one, we can write to my father and ask him to send more capable cultivators here. For another, we can start a war on the continent of Zhozhou. The Dongsang Kingdom and the Junwu Kingdom are at war. Let's go to the Dongsang Kingdom then. Princess Yen Ling smirked. Feng Wu, just you wait. At the same moment, Feng Wu was still unconscious. When she woke up, 3 days had passed. You're awake. Feng Wu heard a calm voice. The first person Feng Wu saw when she opened her eyes was Master Ling Hu. It's you. Feng Wu struggled to sit up and said in pleasant surprise, I knew you would come. Master Ling Hu rolled his eyes at Feng Wu. What if I couldn't make it in time? You're taking too much risk. Feng Wu smiled. No, I know you'll be here. Master Ling Hu snorted. Where did you get that confidence? Feng Wu smiled again. Fifth senior brother, please don't pretend. Sixth senior brother has told me everything. Master Ling Hu stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu chuckled. My sixth senior brother said that you were my fifth senior brother, the one who used to treat me very well. Master Ling Hu rubbed Feng Wu's head. Kiddo, do you remember something? Feng Wu shook her head. Actually, I don't remember what happened in the past. I only heard about it from you, little phoenix, and sixth brother. Master Ling Hu nodded. If you can't remember it, don't think about it. It'll show up when you need it. Feng Wu nodded obediently. Master Ling Hu sat down in front of Feng Wu. Seeing how obedient she was, he was amused. Don't you have anything to ask? Feng Wu moved closer and asked curiously, Senior brother, what's going on with the Empire of Dian? And what's the status of the Yen Prince's residence? What's the average level of their forces over there? Feng Wu had a lot of questions to ask, but Master Ling Hu wasn't going to tell her. He said, if I tell you everything, you'll only hear it in passing. It's best if you can experience it yourself. Only then will you consolidate your cultivation and make a breakthrough. Feng Wu pouted. Her fifth senior brother wasn't as easy to talk to as her sixth senior brother. If he were Patriarch Huyen, he would tell her everything if she gave him the lost puppy look. Seeing the aggrieved look on Feng Wu's face, Master Ling Hu couldn't bring himself to see her like this. She was his only junior sister, and she was the apple of his eye. At that thought, Master Ling Hu patted Feng Wu on the head and said grumpily, the Dian Empire is indeed a superior state to the Junwu Empire, which is a vassal state. We'll have to start from our master. Feng Wu was astonished when Master Ling Hu told her about the origin of the continent. Is that so? Our master was that capable? Build a continent with his bare hands? I can't believe it. Why was this continent called Jojo continent? Because Mu Jojo had created this continent himself. He had created this continent. Mu Jojo was a member of the royal family of the Dian Empire and a high-ranking official. According to Master Ling Hu, Mu Jojo used to inherit the throne of the empire, but he abdicated shortly afterward and gave it to his nephew, while he built the continent himself. That was why the continent was named after Mu Jojo. After Mu Jojo died, the continent fell apart. The 9 provinces were divided into 9 kingdoms, which were what they were now. The Junwo Empire used to be the Junwo province. Seeing how surprised Feng Wu was, Master Ling Hu said, "Master is unprecedentedly powerful, but we don't know why he didn't become the emperor back then and why he built a continent." All of a sudden, Master Ling Hu stared at Feng Wu. "Our master is still alive, isn't he?" Feng Wu nodded. Master Ling Hu said, "As long as my master is alive." Feng Wu said, "But master can't come out right now." Master Ling Hu waved his hand. "I know. It won't be that easy for someone as capable as him to change his fate. He'll come out one day." Feng Wu nodded solemnly. "That's right. He'll come out one day." Master Ling Hu looked at Feng Wu and said, "Since the Dian Empire is here, this battle is bound to happen." Feng Wu asked, "Are you saying that Dian will target the Junwo Empire?" Master Ling Hu nodded. "Yes." Feng Wu said, "Dian is so powerful that the Junwo Empire is nothing compared to it." Master Ling Hu nodded. Feng Wu asked, "Is there no other way?" Master Ling Hu stared at Feng Wu. "There's one." Feng Wu asked, "What?" Master Ling Hu said, "You and Jun Linyuan die, your soul will be destroyed, and you'll never be able to reincarnate." Feng Wu was astonished. Master Ling Hu said, "That's not all. The same thing will happen to my master's disciples, as well as my master himself. They'll never be able to reincarnate. If that's the case, I don't think Dian will attack the Junwo Empire." Feng Wu clenched her fists in frustration. "How can this happen? How?" Master Ling Hu sighed, rubbed Feng Wu's head, and said in a serious tone, "Junior sister, your senior brothers can withstand it for a year or 2, but if the Empire sends all its capable cultivators in, we may not be able to withstand it either. The only option is, my master has to come back." Master Ling Hu stared at Feng Wu and stressed each word. "Only my master can solve this crisis. Remember that?" An idea struck Feng Wu all of a sudden. "So, 6th brother said that an enemy was secretly searching for my master and my senior brothers. That's why my senior brothers are often elusive?" Master Ling Hu nodded. Feng Wu said, "That's why my 6th senior brother told me not to tell anyone about our relationship. The enemy is too powerful. I thought that with how capable my senior brothers are, I wouldn't be afraid of anyone. But now that I think about it, the enemy is from the Dian Empire." Master Ling Hu nodded again. "You're smart." Feng Wu smiled bitterly. "Is the Dian Empire that invincible?" Master Ling Hu said, "Junior sister, please don't worry. The Empire of Dian is indeed a formidable force because there are so many capable cultivators. In terms of spiritual saints alone, they have 10 times more than our continent." Feng Wu said, 10 times? Master Ling Hu said, "But it's only 10 times. They're much more powerful than us, but it's still within reach. All the capable cultivators of our continent have been making rapid progress in the past few years. I think in another 10 years, they'll only be 8 times better than us." 10 years, 8 times. Feng Wu thought to herself, that's just a drop in the bucket. Luckily, the Dian Empire wasn't that powerful. Otherwise, Feng Wu wouldn't know what to do. Before she knew it, Feng Wu had blurted it out. Master Ling Hu smiled. "No, it's not like that. After all, cultivation progresses step by step. Moreover, people can grow old and die, and there's no such thing as immortality. Therefore, people of the Empire of Dian will die when they reach old age. The old ones can't survive forever. When the capable ones die, new ones take their place. That's all. They may seem impressive, but it's only because they have been around for a long time." Feng Wu nodded. We can handle them if we try hard. By the way, my mother. At that thought, Feng Wu told Master Ling Hu that Princess Yen Ling had poisoned her mother. However, Master Ling Hu nodded. I know that. Feng Wu asked, What? You know about that? Master Ling Hu glanced at Feng Wu and said something that shocked her. Our master told me to guard you in the imperial capital. Of course, I know what happened to you. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. It was her master? Her beautiful master had told her fifth senior brother to protect her. Feng Wu didn't know how to react. Master Ling Hu said, Your mother's poison. Feng Wu took a bottle out of her chest pocket and handed it to Master Ling Hu. This is the bottle I took from Princess Yen Ling when I fought her. Please have a look. Feng Wu and Master Ling Hu examined it together. Soon, they exchanged looks and said in unison, We're still short of one ingredient. Feng Wu nodded. That's right. Although it's the right medicine, the toxin has been in my mother's system for a long time. This can neutralize the toxin, but she's too weak to withstand it. Therefore, we have to add the dragon stone plant. Master Ling Hu said, The Junwu Empire doesn't have it. Feng Wu asked, Where can I find it, then? Master Ling Hu looked at Feng Wu and said, The royal palace of the Dongsang Kingdom has it. Master Ling Hu couldn't leave the Junwu Empire or even the imperial capital. I'll go. Feng Wu clenched her fists. I was going to the Dongsang Kingdom to find my third senior brother anyway, and I'm going to take that plant while I'm at it. There's no time to waste. I'm leaving now. After that, Feng Wu turned to leave. Wait. Master Ling Hu stopped Feng Wu. Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment. Master Ling Hu handed Feng Wu a metal ball. Take it. Feng Wu asked, What's that? Master Ling Hu said, It's a guilt from me. Keep it well. It'll work correct 1YWIN the arm. Holding the ball the size of a pigeon egg, Feng Wu looked at Master Ling Hu in bewilderment. Master Ling Hu smiled. Smear your blood on it and it'll be yours. Chapter 3962, Dangerous Battlefield. Feng Wu was surprised. Most of the time, only a divine weapon required blood. It was at least a semi-divine weapon. Feng Wu looked up at Master Ling Hu in astonishment. Fifth senior brother? Master Ling Hu rubbed her head. Do as you're told. All right. Expectedly, Feng Wu dripped blood on the ball. Soon, it popped open, and a suit of armor floated in midair. It was covered with scales and filled with fighting spirit. A semi-divine weapon? Feng Wu was pleasantly surprised. Master Ling Hu said, It used to be a divine weapon, but because you're still a little weak, if you put on a divine weapon, peak spiritual saints will try to take it away. Therefore, I've suppressed it to a semi-divine weapon. One day, when you're strong enough, you can upgrade it to a divine weapon. Master Ling Hu looked at his junior sister in amazement. Apart from cultivation, each of her 6 senior brothers was only good at one subject. Huyen specialized in both cultivation and weapon refinement. Their third senior brother was a cultivator and a swordsman. He, on the other hand, specialized in cultivation and formations. But Feng Wu was the only exception. Their master had taught her everything, and she just happened to be very smart. No matter what her master taught her, she could master it as soon as she was taught. Once she mastered it, she would be able to draw inferences from it and innovate. The girl was amazing. It's called the Qilin armor, said Master Ling Hu. It's returned to its rightful owner, but don't wear it unless you have no other choice. Although I've changed its appearance, old people may still recognize it. Feng Wu nodded. After bidding Master Ling Hu farewell, Feng Wu entered the imperial palace with the Qilin armor. Emperor Wu was sitting in the study with a long face when Feng Wu saw him. Xiao Wu. Emperor Wu was elated to see Feng Wu. He rose to his feet and went to greet her. Your Majesty. Feng Wu greeted him. Emperor Wu waved his hand. Why are you doing this? Get up. Emperor Wu wanted to talk to Feng Wu, so he led her to a table and sat her down. Other people wouldn't have a place to sit if they came here to see Emperor Wu. They could just stand there. Emperor Wu had set up the table for Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan. How's your injury? Is it serious? Did Master Ling Hu tell you anything? Feng Wu hadn't woken up that day, and the imperial physicians couldn't do much, so Emperor Wu went to Master Ling Hu himself. Master Ling Hu was indeed here, but he took Feng Wu to the Wandering Temple straight away. Feng Wu then told him what Master Ling Hu had told her about the Dian Empire. I see, Emperor Wu looked anxious. The Dian Empire has set their eyes on Junwo. They want Master Ling Hu dead, as well as the Crown Prince, you, and all the talented people. Emperor Wu smiled bitterly and rubbed his face. Actually, I know that all along. I knew it. The Empire of Dian is too overbearing and unreasonable for its own good. They're used to being the ruler, and of course, they don't want other forces to rise. The Junwo Empire has Junjun, you, and Master Ling Hu. Of course, the Dian Empire doesn't like that. What centennial tribute? They're just exploiting us over and over again. Feng Wu was confused. Over and over again. That's right. Emperor Wu said solemnly. The Dian Empire comes here every 100 years and chooses a country to take away the most capable cultivators. They do it one at a time. Therefore, the continent of Jiuzhou has been neither strong nor weak for the past 1,000 years. If the talented people hadn't been taken away, we might have been as powerful as the Dian Empire now. This time, they've chosen the Junwo Empire. Feng Wu said solemnly, they've gone too far. Emperor Wu sat on the ground and said bitterly, not only are we being targeted by the Empire of Dian, but there are other 8 kingdoms as well. Emperor Wu stared at Feng Wu and stressed each word. The Dian Empire will never do it themselves. They'll support the proxy state so that it can fight for them. As for the rest of the kingdoms, they can either sit by and watch, or join the other kingdoms and work together against the Junwo Empire. At that thought, Emperor Wu frowned. Things were getting out of hand for the Junwo Empire. Feng Wu immediately said, don't worry. I can't say about other countries, but at least the Northern Yan Kingdom won't be our enemy. She didn't waste the past 3 months. She had found her 6th senior brother and made a reliable ally for the Junwo Empire. Emperor Wu was confused. Why? Of course, Feng Wu couldn't say that the pillar of the Northern Yan Kingdom was her 6th senior brother, but she said affirmatively, don't worry. If you need an ally letter, I'll go get it. Seeing how confident Feng Wu was, Emperor Wu couldn't help but relax a little. If we can form an alliance, then when we take care of the Empire of Dian. Feng Wu said indifferently, Master Ling Hu said that even if the continent of Jiuzhou can form an alliance, will only be 1/10 of the strength of the Dian Empire. Moreover, they still had the Dongsang Kingdom to fight. Recalling her purpose here, Feng Wu told Emperor Wu, Your Majesty, I need to go to the Dongsang Kingdom. No. Emperor Wu refused. Nonsense. Don't you know that the Dongsang Kingdom is fighting us in the Peace Grassland? They'll catch you and skin you alive if you go there. You can't go. Feng Wu only smiled at him. She was here to take her leave, not to hear Emperor Wu's opinion. Emperor Wu probably knew how grumpy Feng Wu could be. Seeing her gentle smile, he knew that he wouldn't be able to persuade her. Emperor Wu said in resignation, Where are you going? I'll send someone to escort you. Green Emperor City. It was the capital of the Dongsang Kingdom. Emperor Wu stopped abruptly. You're going to Green Emperor City? Do you have any idea how dangerous it is? Emperor Wu bellowed at Feng Wu. Do you have a death wish? The last time when Feng Wu almost died, Emperor Wu was already scared out of his wits. Now that Feng Wu was trying to scare him like this, he was furious. Feng Wu smiled. I'll go to the Dongsang Kingdom and ask for an alliance letter. How about we form an alliance with them? Otherwise, we won't be able to defeat the Dian Empire. An alliance will give us a chance. Although it was only a very slim chance. Emperor Wu stared at Feng Wu instead. What are you talking about? Of course, I know the benefits of forming an alliance. If I can do that, of course, it'll be great. Is that possible? Can I? We've been enemies with the Dongsang Kingdom for generations, and we want to kill each other as soon as we meet. Plus, do you think the people of the Dian Empire are idiots? Princess Yen Ling is very smart. If I'm guessing right, they've chosen the Dongsang Kingdom as their proxy this time. Many of the ancient technologies of the Dongsang Kingdom were given by the Dian Empire when they had more advanced versions. But look, all their outdated technologies are so powerful. This time. The more Emperor Wu said, the more pained he became. Looking at Emperor Wu, Feng Wu suddenly walked up to the desk and started writing. "What are you writing?" Emperor Wu asked. "It's a promise," said Feng Wu. "I have to get that letter from the Dongsang Kingdom." "Nonsense." Emperor Wu threw a dirty look at Feng Wu and poked her in the head. "Wake up, kiddo. Stop daydreaming. If you can get the letter of alliance from the Dongsang Kingdom, I'll make you the emperor." Feng Wu asked, "Are you sure?" Emperor Wu said, "Of course." Feng Wu said, "Fine. Sign it." Emperor Wu asked, "What?" Feng Wu quickly wrote down a bet and handed it to Emperor Wu. "If I can get an agreement from the Dongsang Kingdom, you'll owe me the throne. I can take it whenever I want. Will you sign it?" Emperor Wu said, "So be it. You won't get that letter." Seeing that Emperor Wu had signed the agreement, Feng Wu carefully put it away and hid it in her ring space so that it wouldn't get wet. Feng Wu was worried about one thing, but with the bet, she didn't have to worry about what would happen next. What Emperor Wu didn't know was that Feng Wu was so smart that she had set him up in such a short time. If he knew what she did, he would be furious. After bidding Emperor Wu farewell, Feng Wu hurried back to the Feng clan. Time was of the essence here, so Feng Wu didn't linger in the Feng manor. She immediately set out for the Peace Grassland. The shortest route to the Dongsang Kingdom was through the Peace Grassland. Moreover, Feng Wu could enter the Peace Grassland through the portal. Feng Wu had at least 3 plans for the Dongsang Kingdom this time. The second one was the Letter of Alliance, which involved Emperor Wu's throne. The third was her third senior brother and the third broken star piece. Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu stepped into the portal. Before long, she arrived with a ding. The Peace Grassland was right outside the portal. As soon as Feng Wu left the Peace Grassland, she heard panicked shouts a short distance away. "Dodge! Get into the cover! Don't go inside! Get out! Now! They're going to bomb us! Everyone to get out! Find cover and split up!" Feng Wu paled when she heard the hasty voices. Feng Wu recognized that voice. If she remembered it correctly, it was Ying Yuan. Feng Wu had been on his team before, so she could recognize his voice. Feng Wu rushed over and grabbed Ying Yuan. Caught off guard, Ying Yuan was caught by Feng Wu and he cried out, "Who are you?" Feng Wu. Chapter 3963, The Defense Battle, 1. Feng Wu nodded calmly. "Yes, it's me. Report to me now. What happened?" Ying Yuan shook his head. "We don't have much time. To cut it short, the Sun Castle is going to attack us. They've made a small attack before, but it's a large one now. Everyone move out." Feng Wu frowned. "Didn't we take Sun Castle? Didn't Night Owl run back to Green Emperor City? Why is he here?" Ying Yuan smiled bitterly. "That's right. They've taken Sun Castle again. For some unknown reason, they've gained a lot of capable cultivators this time, and the technology of ancient times has been greatly enhanced. Didn't you invent the flying fighter jet? We've put it into use as well, and we were evenly matched. But for some unknown reason, their technology of the ancient times has skyrocketed." Ying Yuan said anxiously, "We can't hold them off much longer. Where are the others? Where's the general? Where are the elders?" Ying Yuan shook his head. "They went to another battlefield." Before he could finish, they heard a rumbling sound ahead of them. Instantly, there was an explosion, and flames filled the air. A building a short distance ahead of Feng Wu was blown to pieces. "This is only the first wave." Ying Yuan's eyes were bloodshot red as he gritted his teeth. "This is only the first wave. Look, the densely packed fighter jets are coming our way." Feng Wu followed Ying Yuan's gaze and saw it. The densely packed ducts really were fighter jets. Just then, Feng Wu saw a group of people running in her direction, and she recognized their leader. It was Senior Sister Lan. Senior Sister Lan, who used to be a level 3 spiritual king, was a level 4 spiritual king now. She was followed by a group of people. They were running in Feng Wui's direction. Out of my way! Out of my way! Senior Sister Lan shouted at Ying Yuan. However, Ying Yuan frowned and said to Feng Wu, "We can't let them in. Even if we have to die, we have to stay here. No one is allowed to enter the portal, let alone retreat into the empire. If we retreat, we'll lose Nest, and the Dongsang kingdom will march right in and reach our empire. If it comes to the worst." Ying Yuan stared at Feng Wu. "Let's destroy the portal together." Feng Wu frowned but didn't answer Ying Yuan right away. Seeing that Feng Wu was hesitating, Ying Yuan said loudly, "If they enter through the portal, they'll reach the imperial capital directly. The Junwo Empire will be wiped out when the soldiers arrive. Therefore, we have to cut off the portal here and force them to enter from northern border city. That's the only way to stall them. Do you understand? We were training our soldiers when you were here before, so we played with the Dongsang kingdom. But now, it's a real battlefield, and it's about life and death." Ying Yuan took a deep breath. "Feng Wu, will you guard the portal with me?" Before Feng Wu could say anything, Senior Sister Lan arrived with a team of people. There were at least 100 of them. These people were about the same level as Senior Sister Lan, and the weaker ones were sent by the Imperial College and Military Academy to guard the Peace Grassland. Chapter 3964, The Defense Battle, 2. "What are you doing?" Ying Yuan stared at them. Senior Sister Lan said aggressively, "Let us through the portal. Out of my way." Ying Yuan stepped out. "The portal will never open. If you insist on going in, you'll have to walk over my dead body." Senior Sister Lan said, "Ying Yuan, are you serious?" Ying Yuan stood there, unmoved. Senior Sister Lan smirked. Fine. If you insist, don't blame us for being merciless." After that, Senior Sister Lan turned around and told the others, "Since Ying Yuan has blocked our way and told us to wait for the explosion, we'll jump over him." Many people around her hesitated. Ying Yuan said angrily, "Lan Wumei, you're running away from the battlefield. That's punishable by death." Senior Sister Lan smirked. "If you want us to be killed by the fighter jets of the Dongsang Kingdom, we'll have to fight for our lives." As she spoke, Senior Sister Lan drew out a long saber from behind her back and struck down at Ying Yuan. Those behind her who had been hesitating stirred as well. The battle could start at any moment. At that critical moment, someone grabbed Senior Sister Lan's sword. Feng Wu had been standing behind Ying Yuan the whole time, and Ying Yuan had caught Lan Wumei's attention just then, so neither she nor the others behind her noticed Feng Wu. "Ugh. Feng Wui." A familiar voice called Feng Wu's name. Feng Wu looked up and saw a teenage girl standing a few steps behind Lan Wumei. She looked rather familiar, and Feng Wu seemed to have dealt with the girl before. It was Shan Jingfei, who had given Feng Wu a hard time in Imperial College before coming to the Peace Grassland. Shan Jingfei walked up to Feng Wu with a frown. "Why are you back? Who are you to stop us? Do you know how capable Senior Sister Lan is? How dare you stop her?" Lan Wumei recognized Feng Wu as well. She and Feng Wu had never been on friendly terms. The so-called feud was actually a one-sided one. Feng Wu had never had the energy to care about such petty things. "It's you." Lan Wumei frowned and stared at Feng Wu. "Why are you here?" Glancing behind Feng Wu, she saw that apart from Ying Yuan and a few of his friends, Feng Wu didn't have anyone else to help her. At that thought, Lan Wumei was elated. Feng Wu was the person she hated the most, and now that Feng Wu had no one to help her, not to mention the chaos. Instead of telling Feng Wu to get out of the way, she struck down at Feng Wu's face. However, Feng Wu caught the blade between her fingers. Lan Wumei was furious. "Feng Wu, one of us is going to die today." After that, she gave up on the sword, drew a dagger out of her sleeve, and struck down at Feng Wu's throat. "Watch out!" Ying Yuan was alarmed. Shan Jingfei smirked. "Feng Wu, since you're all by yourself today, brothers and sisters, with her around, we won't be able to enter the portal today. If we can't, we're going to die here. So, everyone, let's kill her together." While Lan Wumei was attacking Feng Wu, Shan Jingfei began to incite the people behind her. They were all hot-blooded young men, and Shan Jingfei's words had driven them crazy. They attacked Feng Wu one after another. Chapter 3965, The Defense Battle, 3. Feng Wu was furious. She had never been so angry before. It was time to defend the empire. Not only had they abandoned their teammates and fled, but they had also tried to kill the guards. How abominable! Holding his sword, Ying Yuan said angrily, "You all deserve to die." After that, he was going to charge at those people. He didn't have any confidence in winning this battle, because there were only 10 of them, and Lan Wumei was leading hundreds of people. They were all level I and level G spiritual kings. So Ying Yuan was bound to lose and die. However, before he could do anything, something unexpected happened. Thump, thump, thump. One by one, those fell to the ground. They fell to the ground like dominoes. There were over 100 of them, but they were all defeated in a matter of seconds. Ying Yuan stared at Feng Wu, who was moving through the crowd, in disbelief. They. Looking from the crowd to Feng Wu, Ying Yuan opened his mouth but couldn't utter a coherent sentence. Lan Wumei and the others were all dumbfounded. They weren't dead, but their knees had been shattered, and they would never be able to walk again. Lan Wumei stared at Feng Wu and didn't know what to say. Her heart was pounding, and she was so nervous that she didn't dare to breathe. That was so terrifying. How could something so terrifying happen? She thought she knew Feng Wu's cultivation level and believed that Feng Wu had made rapid progress through unorthodox means. She didn't think Feng Wu was much better than the rest of them. But what she did just then was so terrifying. In Lan Wumei's mind, Feng Wu was as capable as Elder Dongfeng. Feng Wu stared at them with cold eyes and stressed each word. "I don't have time for this now. You can come back for your death after this is over." Death? She said they were going to die. Lan Wumei and the others were so frightened that they couldn't utter a word. Just then, Lan Wumei noticed fighter jets coming their way, and she grinned maliciously. Even Feng Wu wouldn't be able to withstand the explosion. "Let's all die together." Ha! Lan Wuji guffawed. Feng Wu followed her gaze and saw a team of fighter jets coming their way. It was obvious that their target was the portal. Feng Wu frowned a little. They were asking for it. Feng Wu took out the arm of discipline on her back and put it on. Senior Sister Lan and the others looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. They didn't understand why Feng Wu would take out her arm when the fighter jets were here. It wasn't a close-range battle, and her arm wouldn't work either. They weren't the only ones who thought that way. The people in the fighter jets thought the same. There were 12 jets, and they were all capable cultivators. Seeing the group of people, the team leader gave the order to attack everyone on the ground. Everyone. That was to say, they could fire at will and eliminate all the targets. However, as soon as the captain gave the order, the girl in red made her move. Chapter 3966, No One is Leaving 1. However, as soon as the captain gave the order, the girl in red made her move. She raised her arm of discipline. A long barrel suddenly appeared at the end of the arm. Thump! A black dot shot out like an arrow. It was so fast that it cut through the wind. When the black dot hit the fighter jet, there was a loud bang, and flames filled the air. Everyone was dumbfounded. They watched this in disbelief. The fighter jet flying at the front was surrounded by flames and was burning as they watched. The people on the fighter jet didn't even have time to jump out. "It's just a little thing, how can it be so?" Ying Yuan opened his mouth but realized that he couldn't utter a word. Ying Yuan wasn't the only one who was shocked. Everyone was staring at Feng Wu as if she was a demon. Feng Wu took aim at the second fighter jet. Although it was only a small black pellet, it was a high-explosive compressed powder shell that Feng Wu had developed with Patriarch Hu Yen when they were in the northern Yen kingdom. The high-energy spiritual essence had been compressed in the pellet. If it was shot out, the explosion would burn up enough energy to destroy a small team. It was the same with the second-generation fighter jets. Thump! Feng Wu fired another high-explosive compressed powder ball. Poof! There came a loud sound. The second fighter jet exploded as well. Shit! The trembling people on the ground were all excited. As for the fighter jet, the people on the fighter jets drew in their breaths. On the third fighter jet, there was only one pilot in each fighter jet, and they were all under the command of the team leader. It had never occurred to them that Feng Wu could do such a thing, so the team leader was flying at the rear, and he was the first to die. Now that the captain was dead, the deputy should be in charge. However, if the captain of the team was running at the front, the deputy was naturally flying next to him. Then the deputy died as well. All hell broke loose. The pilots on the fighter jets could communicate with each other through the communication channel. Guys, what should we do now? Should we charge or not? The third in command was uneasy. Let's go. Of course, we'll avenge the captain and the deputy. No, I don't know what kind of ancient technology they have. We have to go back and report it to the higher-ups. We can't finish the task for the time being. Let's go back now. No, we can't let them die for nothing. We have to avenge them. No, we have to retreat. They couldn't reach an agreement, and everyone had their own opinion. That was the bad thing about not having a leader. Feng Wu smirked. She was going to shoot each fighter jet in turn, but the fighter jet at the end of the line, the one furthest away from her, had changed its direction. You want to leave? Feng Wu smirked and raised her arm. Chapter 3967. No one is leaving too. Remote fire. There was a loud thump. The high-explosive compressed powder exploded. The rearmost fighter jet was hit, and flames erupted, creating a glow brighter than fireworks. Ing Yuan and the others clenched their fists in excitement. However, the fighter jets in midair began to panic. Should they fight or not? Shoot her! A voice came from the third jet. However, only a handful of fighter jets stopped, and most of them had already fled. The three remaining fighter jets. Feng Wu smirked. Thump, thump, thump. Feng Wu fired 3 high-explosive compressed powder shells in a row. She wasn't familiar with the controls at first, but after 2 shots, she was able to shoot fast and accurately. She turned the 3 fighter jets into flames before they could do anything. The pilots who had fled turned around and saw what was going on. They were terrified. If they had chosen to stay, they would have been turned to ash as well. At that thought, they picked up their speed. Feng Wu said, "Guard the portal, and don't let anyone in." Ing Yuan nodded repeatedly. Yes. He looked at Feng Wu with sparkling eyes that were filled with excitement and admiration. And watch them closely. Feng Wu looked around at the people lying on the ground. She meant Lan Wumei and the others. Ing Yuan nodded solemnly. Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them and deal with them when you get back. Lan Wumei and the others wanted to cry, but no tears would come. Many gave senior sister Lan reproachful looks, and she said angrily, "Didn't you say that nest would be destroyed and we would all die? Didn't you want to run back to the imperial capital? Why are you blaming me now?" Naturally, the others wouldn't let Lan Wumei talk her way out of it, so they started criticizing her. Lan Wumei said angrily, "She's only shot a few fighter jets. How can she change the situation? It's a one-sided war now, and we're bound to lose." Many people couldn't retort her. They had all come from the front line, so they knew how dangerous it was. Feng Wu ran after the fighter jets, while they flew as fast as they could. If anyone else had seen it, they would have been shocked, for they had only seen fighter jets chasing people, not the other way around. Run! The pilots in the communication channel broke into a cold sweat. They wished they could have 10 more wings. Just then there was a loud bang. They turned around and saw what was going on. Another fighter jet exploded in midair. That was it. They had lost another fighter jet. There were only 3 of them left. Hang on. We're almost there. Thump. Thump. Arg. I surrender. I surrender. Feng Wu destroyed all the small fighter jets in one go, leaving only one behind. She kept the last one because she wanted to drive it herself. She didn't have time to clean up the mess. Instead, she ran toward the front line as fast as she could. Chapter 3968, No One is Leaving, 3. According to In Yuan, everyone was fighting fiercely on the front line. Because of the ancient technology, the Zhenwu Empire was inferior to the Dongsang Kingdom, and the latter had to have taken control of the air. One could only imagine how fierce the battle would be. At that thought, Feng Wu tightened her grip on the explosive. Luckily, she had gone to Northern Yen before and met her 6th senior brother. His 6th brother was an expert in refining weapons, and Feng Wu had only been able to make a batch of highly combustible compressed gunpowder bullets with his help. I hope I've brought enough this time, Feng Wu thought. Soon, Feng Wu arrived at the front line. From afar, she could see the miserable scene through the fighter jet. It was a battle between intermediate cultivators. Feng Wu didn't see the general, nor did she see any spiritual overlords or above. Mr. Liu, Mr. Su, Elder Helian, and Elder Dongfang weren't there. However, Feng Wu spotted Feng Sun and Xian Yl and Jian away. And her familiar friends. Feng Wu had been assigned to the same school as them, and many of her friends were of the same level. Right now, they were all fighting. They were led by Feng Sun and Xian Yi. Helian Zheong, Ning Ichio, senior brother Min, Chen Ziun, Song Yao, Yang. 1. Right now, they were in a very bad situation. There were fighter jets in the air and Dongsang cultivators of the same level on the ground. Feng Sun had been stabbed 3 times. Xian Yi was covered in blood as well. The others were covered in blood, but they still fought with determination. Seeing this, Feng Wu felt blood rush to her head. She still didn't know where Elder Helian and the others were, but it didn't take a genius to figure out that they were fighting a difficult battle. Feng Wu was a little anxious, but she soon calmed down. Feng Wu had made some rough modifications to the fighter jet, and it was equipped with her specially made high-explosive compressed powder bullets. Shoot! Feng Wu decided that she would eliminate the fighter jets that were suppressing the Zhenwu Empire soldiers first. Hence, she opened fire in midair. The Dongsang Kingdom's first fighter jet was destroyed. What? The fighter jets immediately realized that something wasn't right. But they couldn't see Feng Wu's fighter jet, because Feng Wu had Little Phoenix cover her fighter plane with its stealth ability so that no one could see her. Whoosh! Feng Wu fired 7 more times. After that, Feng Wu changed direction and moved away from the spot. As expected, the area where she had been standing was covered by bombs. The Dongsang Kingdom's fighter jets panicked. There were 200 of them in total. Losing 7 in one go wasn't good news, but it wasn't enough to shock them. However, the enemy was unpredictable, which frightened them the most. Captain, what's going on? The 200 fighter jets were divided into groups of 20, making a total of 10 teams. Right now, all the leaders of the 10 teams were questioning their captain. The captain was equally dumbfounded. While the 200 fighter jets entered the battlefield, the captain's black one stopped a short distance away and watched the battle. But he had no idea where that attack came from. Do you sense anything? The captain asked his deputy. Chapter 3969, In One Go. The captain was Guan Han, General Guan Qi's younger brother. His deputy was Qi Yunfeng. Qi Yunfeng frowned and shook his head. The attack seemed to have come out of nowhere. Has the enemy taken cover? However, with the ancient technology of the Zhenwu Empire, how could they have hidden fighter jets? Our stealth fighter jets are still here, and we haven't lost a single one. I don't think they've been stolen, said Qi Yunfeng. The last time the fighter jet was stolen, the entire Dongsang kingdom was furious. After that, the supervision became very strict. Guanhan thought the same. Take this stealthy fighter jet and take a detour. Be careful. Qi Yunfeng was an expert in observation and calculation, so he was perfect for the job. Yes. Qi Yunfeng entered the stealth fighter jet right away. Stealth fighter jets were very rare even in the Dongsang kingdom, and there were only a handful of them on the front line. Feng Wu had no idea that Qi Yunfeng was looking for her. Right now, she had rushed into the circle of fighter jets and started shooting. Feng Wu knew that the fighter jets were gathering together now, but they would soon scatter, making it very difficult for her to destroy them. Therefore, whoosh! She destroyed 7 fighter jets in one go. She then turned in another direction and started another round of shooting. Even the people on the ground had noticed the change in the sky. Wait a minute. What's going on? Why did their fighter jet explode all of a sudden? Feng Sun suddenly thought of someone. Feng Wu was able to turn herself invisible and had the technology of ancient times. At that thought, he and Xian exchanged looks and both saw a pleasant surprise in each other's eyes. They had arrived at the peace grassland before Feng Wu and had no idea what happened at the banquet the other day. They had been engaged in this frantic battle ever since they arrived at the battlefield. The upheaval in the sky had benefited the Junwu Empire greatly. Feng Sun shouted, "It's just a fighter jet. Why should we be afraid of it? We have them too. Our fighter jet can turn invisible. We caught them off guard. Dongsang Kingdom used to have 200 fighter jets. Look, 50 have fallen already. Ha! The invincible battle squadron? They're so weak." Feng Sun's words cheered the soldiers of the Junwu Empire up. They had been determined to fight to the death. We'll soon regain our control in the air. Guys, let's go. Feng Sun waved his hands and gave the order. Charge! The battle had been one-sided on the ground, but with Feng Wu's intervention, things had changed. The soldiers of the Junwu Empire were filled with passion. Especially students from Imperial College and Military Academy. Because they were still young, they had tied a red cloth around their foreheads, which made them look more fierce. Die! They ran as fast as they could, ignoring their own lives. Intimidation was the most important thing in a battle. The Dongsang Kingdom might be powerful, but when the soldiers of the Junwu Empire showed no fear of death, they were terrified. They looked up involuntarily. Their fighter jets were still burning and exploding one after another. In mid-air, Qi Yunfeng had noticed the hidden fighter jet and gave the order. All 10 teams split up into 5 groups, covering the center and all 4 directions. Hence, the 10 groups of fighter jets no longer cared about the battle below and split up as they were told. However, each group of fighter jets suffered losses, some more than others. Once they were separated, if Feng Wu attacked another team, the other teams would soon notice her and outflank her. What Qi Yunfeng didn't know was that Feng Wu had planned everything. Seeing this, Little Phoenix asked Feng Wu, "Kiddo, what should we do now?" "They'll soon surround you no matter which group you attack." Feng Wu smiled a little. "Is that so?" Little Phoenix looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu said, "If that's the case, let's attack the one in the center." Little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. "Have you lost your mind?" Feng Wu said, "Of course not." Little Phoenix said, "But the moment you do that, those people will attack us. That's impossible." Feng Wu chuckled. "Then why don't we take a detour around and get to that fighter jet at the center?" Little Phoenix's eyes lit up. "Are you sure you want to take the risk?" Feng Wu asked Little Phoenix, "Are you scared?" Little Phoenix immediately became competitive. "How dare you? I'm the famous Master Phoenix. Why should I be scared?" Feng Wu smiled. "All right, get the bombs ready. Let's go." Hence, Feng Wu drove the fighter jet, which had been turned invisible by Little Phoenix, and slowly arrived at the team at the center. All the fighter jets were suspending in midair. They kept an eye on their surroundings as they attacked the ground. Feng Wu's fighter jet was right above them. Boom! High, explosive bombs were fired at the fighter jets. It was supposed to be bait. As soon as Feng Wu made her move, the fighter jets realized what had happened, and they scattered in all directions, trying to surround Feng Wu's stealthy fighter jet. However, Feng Wu had her reasons for doing that. While all the fighter jets were rushing out, Feng Wu moved very fast and jumped into another group. There was another round of explosions. It's in the east. While they were shooting in the east, Feng Wu turned to the fighter jets in the south. Boom! All hell broke loose. Feng Wu was able to make herself invisible, which gave her the greatest advantage. Qi Yunfeng didn't expect that his plan would fall apart so easily. Blue veins popped on his forehead as he bellowed, "Scatter!" Now, since the grouping approach wouldn't work, the fighter jets separated and flew on their own. At his command, the fighter jets did as they were told. Then they heard a loud bang. Qi Yunfeng's fighter jet made a loud noise before turning into a ball of fire. Qi Yunfeng was flying a stealth fighter jet, so how did he get spotted and blown up? It was a second-generation one and was much more defensive than the first generation. Had Qi Yunfeng's fighter jet really been destroyed? No. But Feng Wu had taken it. Qi Yunfeng had been knocked out and thrown into the back seat. The exploding fighter jet was the one Feng Wu had been using. Wow, a second-generation fighter jet. It's a new weapon. Feng Wu sat down in the second-generation fighter jet, looked at the device, and smiled a little. It was well hidden and powerful. Wasn't it tailor-made for Feng Wu? Feng Wu couldn't stop smiling when she looked at the first-generation fighter jets a short distance away. Everybody, let's see how lethal your own second-generation fighter jet is. After familiarizing herself with the fighter jet, Feng Wu decided to start it up and let it work for the Zhenwu Empire. Meanwhile, Guan Han, the captain of the fighter jet, stomped his foot. He had lost Qi Yunfeng, his most capable assistant. To his frustration, half of the 200 fighter jets were gone. Find it! Find it! We must find it! Guan Han bellowed. This time, it was his turn to give instructions. What he didn't know was, Feng Wu's target wasn't the scattered fighter jets, but Guan Han. If she could take down Guan Han, the Dongsang Kingdom's morale would plummet, and the Zhenwu Empire would be able to turn things around. At that thought, Feng Wu steered the second-generation fighter jet toward Guan Han at top speed. Guan Han suddenly sensed something and stared into the distance. There was movement. A stealth fighter jet? Guan Han's guards were astonished. Wasn't Qi Yunfeng's second-generation fighter jet destroyed? Why was it coming this way? And why was the captain the target? The guard grabbed Guan Han and dodged to one side. Thump, thump, thump. Many fighter jets were attacking the second-generation stealth fighter jet. However, what they didn't know was that Feng Wu was no longer in the stealth fighter jet. After setting it to autopilot and pointing it in Guan Han's direction, she disappeared into the air. Qi Yunfeng saw everything. Yes, Qi Yunfeng wasn't dead. Feng Wu had sealed his acupoints and thrown him in the back seat. Seeing what Feng Wu was doing, Qi Yunfeng mumbled. Sweat covered his forehead, but he couldn't make a coherent sentence, nor could he warn Guan. That was to say, it had been exposed. What Guan Han saw was, sitting in the driver's seat, Qi Yunfeng drove the fighter jet toward him. Qi Yunfeng, you're not dead. Qi Yunfeng, are you nuts? Qi Yunfeng, stop. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.